I was the brilliant Randall at Hedell Medical College, and everyone believed I would be the next legendary doctor. But now, I can't even hold a scalpel steadily and am laughed at as a loser. The reason was that in order to protect my girlfriend, I blocked a fatal knife with my right hand, but what I got in return was her sweet words in the arms of another man. Just when I thought everything was over, a mysterious woman took me to a mysterious hospital. She used nanotechnology to miraculously repair my right hand. In addition, in order to make me worship her as a teacher, she also gave me a hotel worth 500 million US dollars. At this time, I unexpectedly discovered that the person who hurt me was secretly plotting. Is fate restarting, or is it uncovering a bigger conspiracy? Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like this story, please let me know in the comments section. I will update the next part. Chapter 1. Look, Randall's hands are shaking again. Huh? What can a surgeon who can't even hold a scalpel steadily do? He is simply a waste. Don't forget, he was once a genius. In the laboratory of the Hedell Medical College, dozens of students gathered around the dissection table to learn human anatomy. I stood aside, holding the scalpel in my hand, but my right hand was shaking uncontrollably. The knife finally slipped from my hand, and the crisp sound instantly made the entire laboratory quiet, and everyone's eyes were cast on me. Their eyes were full of mockery, and that look was like a knife piercing my heart. 3 months ago, I was still called the pride of the medical school, and everyone said I would become a legendary doctor. But an accident made all of this vanish. That day, Tanya and I were shopping on the street when a group of robbers appeared. In order to protect her, I used my right hand to block the knife, and it was almost cut off. Although the doctors tried their best to save me, the nerve damage could not be reversed. I looked at my right hand quietly, feeling extremely desperate. This hand was not as flexible as before, and it made it impossible for me to complete even the simplest operations. Tanya once knelt beside my bed and said to me, "Even if your hand can never be restored, I still love you." At that moment, I felt that it was worth losing everything for her. The professor's voice came coldly. "You know what? Your failure is a waste of laboratory resources. Go out and don't disturb other students' studies." I raised my head, held back my tears, put the scalpel back on the tray, and walked out of the lab silently. The laughter behind me was like a slap in the face, and even the professor shook his head and sighed. I won't give up, I said to myself. If my right hand doesn't work, I'll use my left hand. I still have hope. I was walking in the corridor, preparing to go back to the dormitory to practice. But as soon as I reached the second floor, I heard a familiar voice coming from the classroom next to the stairs. I stopped and walked towards the direction of the voice. Through the crack in the door, I saw a scene that I will never forget. Tanya was intimate with another man, and her voice was full of tenderness that once belonged only to me. "Tanya, do I satisfy you more than Randall?" There was pride in the man's voice. I stood outside the door, my chest aching as if it was torn apart, and my anger made it almost impossible for me to breathe. I suddenly raised my foot and kicked the door open. Chapter 2: Girlfriend's Betrayal. When I kicked the door open, I was stunned by the scene I saw. Tanya and Sean's turned to look at me, with shock on their faces. They obviously didn't expect someone to intrude on their private moment. Anger burned in my chest, and I asked in a trembling voice, "Tanya, how could you do this to me? Why did you betray me?" Sean sneered contemptuously and walked slowly towards me. He grabbed Tanya's body provocatively and said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? You are just a failed disabled person who is not worthy of her at all." I clenched my fists. Anger overwhelmed my reason, and I shouted, "Sean, stop. You took away everything from me and dared to humiliate me." But my right hand was no longer under my control and was shaking so much that I could hardly hold anything. Tanya leaned on Sean's, her eyes no longer tender. She sneered and said, "Randall, you will never understand that you have already become a loser because you have lost your opportunities in health." Every word she said was like a knife stabbing my heart. She even kissed Xiao Wenxi on the cheek and said mockingly, "He is now the top student in the class, and you are just a useless joke. Go away and don't bother us anymore." Anger and grief intertwined in my heart. I grabbed the chair beside me and tried to throw it at Sean's. However, the chair was barely stable in my trembling hands, and he easily snatched it away, then kicked me to the ground. Sean's looked down at me, put his foot on my head, sneered, and said, "Genius? Ha, you're just a laughing stock of the past." After that, He spat and pulled Tanya out of the classroom. On the cold floor, I felt abandoned by the world. My chest ached violently, and I was almost suffocated by anger, but at the same time, a dark determination rose in my heart. A few minutes later, I gritted my teeth and stood up, dragging my bruised body back to the dormitory. I turned on my phone and unexpectedly saw an email. I clicked on the attached photo, and my eyes widened. In the photo, Xiao Wensi and a familiar man were sitting in a bar drinking. And that man was the robber who almost cut off my right hand. I held the phone tightly, and anger made me tremble all over. Isn't that an accident? I whispered to myself, anger and doubt surging in my chest. Just then, the phone rang again. I picked up the phone and heard a cold female voice on the other end. Go to the east gate of the school now. Then the call was hung up. I hesitated for a moment, but finally decided to follow the instructions. Thinking that all this might be a conspiracy by Sean's, I was furious. If you are really related to that accident, I will definitely destroy everything you have. In front of the east gate, a luxurious black and gold Rolls-Royce was parked quietly. The door opened, and a woman in a black suit walked out. She was stunningly beautiful, and her every move was full of fatal charm. She stood in front of me, pushed her glasses coldly, and said, "Get in the car." Her eyes were sharp and cold. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but I had decided not to take a step back. Chapter 3. Excuse me, who are you? I looked at the woman in front of me in confusion. She said coldly, "My name is Amari Vance. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that as long as you follow me, you will find the answer." Her temperament made me feel inexplicably nervous, and after hesitating for a moment, I carefully got in the car. After the car started, I clasped my hands together and looked through the window at the street scene passing by. The car drove through a huge gate and finally stopped in a quiet and luxurious manner. The parking lot was full of luxury cars, and everything in front of me stunned me. The colorful gardens and golf courses in the manor are amazing, but what caught my attention most was a 3-story hospital, which is magnificent, classical, and elegant. This hospital is completely different from ordinary hospitals. Its architectural style is the Baroque design of the 18th century. The carved beams and painted buildings reveal a sense of luxury and history. However, what really shocked me was not its appearance, but the familiar name, Hedell Royal Hospital, which has appeared countless times in the legends of the medical community. I stood in front of the hospital gate, looking at the towering building, feeling mixed emotions. I was full of anticipation, but also a little uneasy. I knew that the unknown truth would be revealed here. Entering the hospital, I followed Amari through a quiet corridor. The walls were covered with old paintings and photos of medical documents, which seemed to silently tell the legendary history of the hospital. The elevator slowly lifted us up to the top floor, and the cabin was filled with a faint floral scent that seemed to come from the courtyard garden on the top floor. My doubts and nervousness intensified. After the elevator door opened, I was led to a spacious study room. The moment I pushed the door open, the scene in front of me took my breath away. The study was elegant and solemn, with huge bookshelves piled with medical books and research materials. My eyes fell on an old photo of Stuart Turner concentrating on surgery when he was young. Just as I was staring at the photo in a trance, a deep voice interrupted my thoughts. "What are you thinking about when you see the photo?" An old man with slightly messy hair but extraordinary temperament turned around. It was Stuart. His eyes were as sharp as a sword, piercing my heart through his black-framed glasses. "You come here to find out the truth. But before that, you need to be prepared." His tone gave me a chill, but it also aroused my curiosity. I took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Whatever it is, I'm willing to accept it." Stuart smiled slightly, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. "You are very smart and talented. The only thing that limits you now is your injured right hand." Hearing this, I was shocked. He knew my situation, but what could he do for me? Confusion and expectation intertwined in my heart. Stuart picked up a small bell and rang it gently. The door opened and several doctors in white coats walked in. Their presence made me feel uneasy. 2 doctors came forward, grabbed my arms, and pressed me onto a stretcher. I tried to struggle, but found that I was unable to resist their strength. Then a doctor came up with a syringe, and without hesitation, he stuck the needle into my neck. I felt a sharp pain, and then my vision began to blur. On the edge of coma, I heard Stuart's voice from a distance. "Sleep well. The nightmare is about to end, and a new life is about to begin." Even as I was fading from consciousness, a thought flashed through my mind. Was Stewart going to operate on my right hand? The fear of the unknown mixed with hope plunged me into a deep darkness. Chapter 4. $500 million. When I was lifted onto the operating table, my body was completely anesthetized. My vision was blurry as I stared at the operating light above my head. I could only vaguely hear the doctor's whispers, and then I fell into a coma. When I woke up, the sun shone through the curtains into the room, and my vision was blurry and unreal. I slowly raised my right hand and tried to make a fist, but found that it was no longer shaking. At that moment, my breathing stopped. My hand became stable, and there was no pain. Looking down carefully, I noticed several tiny pinholes on the back of my hand and wrist. As someone who is extremely sensitive to medicine, I immediately realized that these were marks left by the surgical needle. Apparently, the nerves had been reconnected, but I had no idea how it worked. No matter how hard you think, you can't guess the answer. Stewart said calmly as he pushed the door open. This is a masterpiece of nanotechnology. Only a very small number of people in the world can perform this kind of surgery. I was startled by Stewart's appearance. He looked much more haggard. His back was more bent than before, and when he walked over with a cane, his steps were a little tired. Dr. Turner! I sat up immediately, full of surprise. I didn't expect him to come to see me in person. He smiled and said calmly, "From now on, I am your mentor. You have potential, and I will pass on all my knowledge to you." Me? I looked at him in disbelief. It was almost like an absurd dream. How could I surpass this legendary figure in such a short time? Yes, it's you. His tone was firm. Don't underestimate yourself. Your IQ is 200. This is one of the reasons why I chose you. You are born different. Listening to his words, my heart was filled with gratitude and awe. I bowed without hesitation and replied, "It is my honor to be your student." "Thank you." Stewart smiled and handed me a cell phone. "Here are all my surgical cases from the past 20 years. Study them carefully. This is our first official step." When I took the phone, I felt a tremendous pressure and expectation. After thanking him repeatedly, I was determined to prove with actions that I would not let him down. Over the next few days, I barely left my room, spending all my time studying the vast collection of surgical cases on my phone, trying to extract every bit of knowledge from them. Just when I was concentrating on studying, a message interrupted my concentration. "Don't forget the medical exchange meeting today. I'm still waiting for you." The message came from Dorsey Riley, a professor of neurosurgery at the medical school and one of the few people who cared about me after I injured my right hand. I learned that she had been invited to attend a medical seminar hosted by Wesson, the director of the Hedell General Hospital, and that she could bring 3 students with her, and I was one of them. When I told Stewart about this, he actually chuckled. "Wesson also holds seminars? Time flies. But the Brady Hotel, right? That hotel is mine." He said this lightly, but the next sentence stunned me. "The market value is $500 million, Randall, and now it belongs to you. Consider it my first gift to you." Chapter 5. Amari offered to take me to the Breton Hotel, but I declined. Once in the car, my mind was still wandering, as if I were in an incredible dream. The Breton Hotel is a landmark of the city. Like a shining gem, it stands tall in the center of the city, with a market value of up to $500 million. Stewart gave it to me as a gift without hesitation, casually calling it the first gift, which made me wonder if there were more surprises. This was all too unreal. I had never thought that I would receive such a precious gift. I felt so complicated and even a little overwhelmed. When I calmed down, the taxi suddenly stopped. The road ahead was blocked, and a crowd gathered, and the atmosphere seemed extremely tense and anxious. An emergency announcement came from the car radio. There was a car accident on Marble Street, and a 9-year-old boy was injured. The ambulance will take half an hour to arrive. Please ask the doctor for immediate help. Hearing this, I paid the fare without hesitation, got off the car, and rushed to the scene of the accident. As a doctor, I am fully aware of my responsibilities. However, fate always seems to play tricks on people. When I arrived at the scene, I met 2 familiar but disgusting people, Sean's and Tanya. Shaowen sneered at me and said, "Look at this disabled person still thinking about saving others? You can't even save yourself." His tone was full of mockery. Tanya rolled her eyes and sneered. "It's disgusting that a loser like him wants to be a hero." As she spoke, she fiddled with her expensive Hermes bag. Their sarcasm and ridicule made me furious, but I suppressed my anger and reminded myself, I am a doctor, and the injured in front of me are more important than their ridicule. I ignored them and walked straight to the accident scene. The front of the black Mercedes was deformed by the collision, and an old man was anxiously treating the wound of the unconscious boy. The old man, with white hair and red and swollen eyes, was frantically cleaning the glass fragments from the boy's wound, shouting, "Is there a doctor? Please help me." I saw the boy lying motionless on the ground with many small wounds on his body. Blood was oozing from a deep cut on his neck. He looked to be in a very critical condition. After squatting down and observing, I judged that some glass fragments might have pierced the boy's blood vessels. This needed to be dealt with immediately, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. When the old man saw me approaching, hope flashed in his eyes, and he quickly asked, "Are you a doctor? I need an assistant to help me remove the glass fragments." I nodded, quickly opened my toolbox, put on disposable gloves, and answered calmly and firmly, "Yes, I am a doctor. I will do my best to save him." Chapter 6. When I heard about the child's condition, I immediately squatted down and carefully observed the wound. I closed my eyes and used the medical knowledge in my mind to guess the location of the glass fragments. Based on the characteristics of the bleeding and wounds, I quickly determined that the glass fragments might be stuck in the middle section of the carotid artery, close to the inner wall of the blood vessel, which was very dangerous. If the glass fragments had entered his heart, the boy would have died in seconds. I decided to operate immediately instead of waiting for an ambulance. However, Xiao Wenxi's mocking voice came from behind. "You disabled person, why do you think you can save him? You can't even control your right hand." After hearing this, the old man's face showed a trace of doubt and hesitation, and his hope seemed to be shattered in an instant. I watched his eyes change from expectation to disappointment. Shaywins continued to exaggerate. "Sir, he is a loser. His right hand trembles like he has Parkinson's disease. Let him have surgery? You are so naive." The old man frowned. He began to believe what Sean said and angrily scolded me. "Go away. Don't let my grandson die in your hands." I could only step back and wait for the next development. The old man begged Sean Wins, "Please perform surgery on my grandson. If anything goes wrong, I will take all the responsibility. I just ask you to save him." But Sean Wins turned pale and shook his head repeatedly. He simply didn't have the ability to complete the operation under such circumstances. The risk was too high, and he was worried that it would ruin his career, so he turned around and refused the old man. People around me started to talk about it. It's a shame that these people study medicine but have no sense of responsibility. The medical industry is being ruined by people like this. Faced with the accusations, Sean's retorted angrily and tried to leave with Tanya, while the old man took out the tools and prepared to perform surgery on his grandson himself. I walked up to the old man and said seriously, "You are emotionally unstable now, and any further action may lead to serious consequences. Please believe me, I will save him." The old man looked at me, hesitated for a moment, and finally nodded in agreement. I quickly disinfected my hands, took the scalpel, and started the operation. I cleaned the boy's neck, made a small cut, quickly found the location of the glass fragments with a scalpel, and carefully removed them. The whole process took only about 30 seconds. After the wound was sutured, the bleeding stopped immediately, the boy's body temperature returned to normal, and his breathing became steady again. The onlookers were stunned and exclaimed, "Oh my God, it's too fast, he must be a genius." The old man murmured in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Chapter 7. "It's incredible. How did you find the glass fragments?" The old man looked at the glass fragments in my hand in disbelief, his face full of shock. "This is impossible. Absolutely impossible." Xiao Wenxi was stunned and speechless. He thought I would fail and even kill the child. But the opposite happened. I was able to remove the glass shards, and the boy's breathing began to steady. It was like a loud slap in the face. The onlookers began to laugh at Shaywins and Tanya, who had no place to hide their embarrassment. Tanya's face turned red with shame. Tanya was even more shocked by my hand. She clearly remembered the doctor saying that my nerve damage was irreparable and that my right hand was destined to tremble constantly. "Is he cured?" Tanya stared at my hands as I was taking off my gloves. She couldn't accept this fact in her heart and even suspected that it was just luck. "Sir, your grandson is out of danger," I said to the old man calmly. He raised his head and looked at me gratefully, his eyes full of hope. "Are you his classmate?" "My name is Wesson Medina, and I'm the head of a hospital. Please tell me his name." The old man asked Sean's. "No, we don't know him." Sean's interrupted immediately, his face full of shame. He dragged Tanya away hurriedly. as if he didn't want me to get any attention. However, Tanya seemed reluctant to leave and kept looking back as she left, looking thoughtful. Wesson Medina. This name sounds so familiar, she muttered to herself. Although they refused to reveal my name, a bystander at the scene had already recorded the entire incident with his mobile phone and quickly uploaded the video to TikTok. The video went viral in just 10 minutes, and viewers praised me as a hero doctor, a life-saving angel with a heart of gold. The video quickly became a hot search on major social media platforms, and the hashtag about me exploded instantly, with the number of viewers reaching 300,000 in just 10 minutes. Meanwhile, outside the Breton Hotel, Dorsey was anxiously waiting for me. Randall said he was on his way, but why hasn't he arrived yet? She whispered to herself in confusion. Louise Todd frowned, looking impatient. She said sarcastically, Professor Dorsey, why are you so concerned about Randall? He can't even be on time. Brady Truman, who was standing nearby, showed a disdainful expression. Randall? A disabled person is qualified to attend such an important seminar? He is not fit to be a doctor at all. Dorsey frowned, and his tone became stern. Brady, watch your words. A doctor's character is more important than his ability. Stop slandering Randall maliciously. Brady snorted, looking extremely reluctant. Okay, whatever you say. Then he pointed at the participants in the hotel and said, Others have already gone in. If we wait any longer, we will be late. I'm waiting here for Randall, Dorsey insisted. Only when he arrives can we go in together. She needed to get into the venue as soon as possible to communicate with the experts. Don't worry, I'll bring Randall in. Brady promised with a smile, raised his hand and swore, then watched Dorsey walk into the hotel. His face suddenly darkened. I will never wait for that loser. Brady sneered, smoked a cigarette, blocked my number directly, and walked into the hotel. A few minutes later, I finally arrived at the hotel entrance, but found that Dorsey and others were not outside. I guess that they had already entered the venue. As I was about to enter, the security guard at the door stopped me. I immediately felt very funny. This is my hotel, but I can't enter. Chapter 8. I was shocked and angry when I was stopped by the security of my own hotel. This place was supposed to be mine, and I was being treated like this. What are you doing? I asked him with a frown, suppressing my displeasure. The security guard sneered and pointed his baton at my blood-stained clothes. Who are you? You want to come and dress like this? His gaze made me extremely uncomfortable, as if he was interrogating a criminal. I responded coldly. Move aside. I'm here to attend a seminar. The security guard burst out laughing, looked me up and down, and said, Attending a seminar? You're dressed like that? Are you kidding? Seminars are for doctors, not homeless people. Get lost. My clothes were indeed worn out. There was blood on my body from the person I had just saved, and my hair was messy, so the security guard thought I was a gangster. I took a deep breath, tried to stay calm, took out my phone and said, I'll prove my identity. Let me call the person who invited me. Keep acting, he said sarcastically with a playful look in his eyes. Once it's proven that you're a liar, don't blame me for being rude. He raised his baton, looking ready to take action at any time. Undaunted, I stared at him as he dialed Dorsey's number, keeping my cool and looking him in the eye. At this time, Brady was wandering around the seminar venue. He took out an iPhone with a pink phone case and sneered when he saw the caller ID. That idiot actually called, Brady mocked, directly rejected the call, and quickly deleted the call record. I called 3 times, but no one answered. I wondered, why didn't she answer? Was she in a meeting? Just as I was thinking, the security guard suddenly slapped my phone away with a slap and yelled, Scammer, stop pretending. Oh my God, why did you do this? I picked up the phone angrily and glared at him, almost unable to suppress the anger in my chest. At this time, a middle-aged couple walked towards the entrance. They were well-dressed and elegant, and they were obviously here to attend the seminar. The middle-aged man asked the security guard, Hello, how can I get to the seminar venue? The security guard immediately changed his expression and replied with a smile, Welcome, I will take you there right away. However, when the lady saw me, she covered her nose and took a step back, her face full of disgust. Bah, how can there be such a poor guy in such a high-end place? The couple took a few steps back, their eyes full of disgust, as if they were facing a pile of rotten garbage. Seeing this, the security guard became nervous. In order to please the couple, he raised his baton and roared at me. Why don't you get out of here, or I'll smash your head? Just as the baton was about to swing down, he was suddenly kicked hard from behind. He fell to the ground, his forehead hitting the floor, and blood flowed out. Who the hell kicked me? He covered his forehead and cursed, his face full of pain, but he didn't dare to look back. "It's me. So what? What do you want?" A cold and firm voice came from behind him. Chapter 9. I looked up when a man suddenly started yelling. He was sweating and walking towards us aggressively. He was obviously a senior manager here. He was Joshua Mason, the general manager of the Brent Hotel. A few minutes ago, he received an email from headquarters informing him that the hotel's new owner had arrived. There was a photo of me in the email. When he heard the news, he rushed out of the office and didn't even bother to wait for the elevator. He ran downstairs to greet me. But when he arrived, he saw the security guard trying to hit me on the head with a baton. His face turned black as the bottom of a pot, and he kicked the security guard down. "Mr. Mason?" The security guard was kicked and fell to the ground. When he looked up and saw it was him, his face turned pale instantly and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Joshua glared at him fiercely. His eyes could almost melt steel. "Who were you scolding just now? Do you know what you were doing? Are you crazy?" "Oh, Mr. Mason, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you. Please forgive me." The security guard bent over and begged, looking servile. At this time, the middle-aged couple also spoke up. The woman shouted, "Hey, is this how you manage a hotel? Get this poor guy out of here right away. He's disgusting. People like him are a breeding ground for bacteria." Joshua's face turned pale when he heard this. He strode up to her and slapped her without hesitation, with a crisp sound echoing at the door. "Shut up. From now on, you two are permanently banned from entering the Brent Hotel. Get out," he shouted coldly. "What?" The middle-aged couple widened their eyes in shock and shouted in unison. They obviously didn't expect to be treated like this because of me. Although they were vaguely aware that my identity might not be simple, being humiliated like this still made them furious. The woman gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, this is not over yet," and then left angrily. Joshua turned around, looked at me respectfully, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. This will never happen again. Are you satisfied with the way I handled it?" I nodded and said calmly, "Not bad. Now, take me to the seminar venue." "Please follow me, sir." Joshua immediately led me into the hotel like a humble servant. At this time, the security guard on the ground realized how big a mistake he had made. "Mr. Carter, please forgive me. It's just a misunderstanding," he begged in a low voice, but Joshua interrupted him coldly. "Oh, I almost forgot about you. Not only did you disrespect your boss, but you also tried to attack him. You are fired. Pack up and get out within 5 minutes." Meanwhile, Dorsey had just walked out of the conference room. The meeting was over. She looked around, saw Brady and Louise standing in the hallway, and frowned. "Where's Randall? Hasn't he arrived yet?" She picked up her phone and checked the call log. "He didn't even call me. What happened to him?" Louise rolled her eyes impatiently and complained. "Maybe nothing happened to him. He just doesn't value your invitation. This kind of person is not worth waiting for." Brady listened to Louise's anger with a smug smile on his face. He knew that his plan was successful and Randall's reputation was damaged. But at the moment of his smugness, his smile froze. He stared at me with my hands in my pockets, walking towards them calmly. Chapter 10. Brady blinked a few times and stared at me in disbelief. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to get into the hotel. His plan had failed too quickly. Dorsey saw me. His eyes lit up, and he walked over quickly. I waved to Joshua, and he quickly slipped into the corner and disappeared without a trace. Dorsey noticed the blood on my clothes, and her face was filled with worry. "Randall, are you okay?" "What happened?" she asked anxiously. "I'm fine. The blood isn't mine. It's just a long story. Let's go to the seminar first." I waved my hand, trying to keep things simple. Louise came over with a frown on her face. She was obviously very dissatisfied with my worn and blood-stained clothes. "Randall, what's wrong with you? It's so rude of you to dress like this for an occasion like today." Her nose wrinkled slightly, and her disgust was evident in her words. At this time, Brady also joined in. He sneered and asked, "Did you go to the fight today? Do you know that such an image will embarrass Miss Riley?" I knew Brady's intention. He wanted to cause trouble and stir up conflict. I glanced at him coldly and chose to ignore his provocation. Brady is the type of guy who makes fun of people, and he has been doing that ever since I got hurt. I know that explanations are meaningless to him. Fortunately, Dorsey ignored Brady's provocation. She smiled and took Louise's hand and said, "Randall, let me introduce you. This is Louise Todd, one of my students. I hope you can get along well." I extended my hand politely and smiled as I greeted Louise. who had long, smooth hair and a neat light blue suit with a shirt so tight that it could hardly be buttoned. I have to admit that she is more beautiful than Tanya and has a more outstanding temperament. However, her cold eyes and rolling eyes quickly made me sober up. Brady was obviously dissatisfied with Dorsey's arrangement and deliberately said, "Randall, don't forget that your right hand is injured. Be careful when shaking hands, and don't make yourself worse." Louise frowned and turned to Brady, who immediately described my injury in great detail. Dorsey shouted angrily, "Brady, shut up. I have warned you not to slander others like this." Her tone was full of anger, but the damage had been done. Louise obviously knew about my situation. The disgust on her face became more obvious. She ignored my outstretched hand, snorted coldly, and turned away. The situation became extremely awkward. I quietly withdrew my hand and pretended nothing had happened, while Brady laughed at me with gloating. At this moment, the radio in the venue broke the silence. A staff member walked up to the stage and said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Medina had an accident on the road. The seminar will be postponed for 30 minutes. He continued, "If you feel bored, you can visit the exhibition hall next door. There are the latest medical devices brought by Mr. Medina. Each device is worth millions of dollars. Please keep your distance." I was relieved to hear the news. It gave me some time to calm down and to temporarily avoid these embarrassing people and things. Chapter 11 to 12, you can't afford it. The attendees waited in the hall for a long time and were obviously bored. Most of them decided to go to the exhibition hall to see the rumored high-end medical equipment. There were about 60 machines on display in the exhibition hall, and each device was new and interesting to people. Many people had never even heard of the existence of these devices. But these devices were not new to me. I had seen similar machines at Stewart's place, and they were even more advanced than these. I was familiar with the principles of these devices and knew how to use them, but I had never used them myself. I couldn't help but get closer to study them. Wish I could practice using these, I muttered to myself, not noticing Brady's presence. "Oh my God, it's so embarrassing to be with a country bumpkin like this." Brady scoffed, while Louise nodded silently in agreement. I ignored their jeers and focused on my equipment, but Brady's jealousy got the better of him. He quietly walked up behind me and gave me a hard push. I was caught off guard and my body collided with a piece of equipment. The huge machine fell to the ground with a loud bang, and parts were scattered everywhere, with debris everywhere on the ground. Everyone gasped. This was a device worth millions of dollars. Brady turned pale with fear. He had not expected the consequences to be so serious. "Why did you push me?" I turned around and glared at Brady, questioning him. Brady's forehead was sweating, but he quickly denied it. "Don't accuse me. You knocked me down." Louise immediately agreed. "That's right. Why are you blaming others? It's obviously your own fault." While we were arguing, Medina's assistant Lowell came over angrily. When he saw the debris on the ground, his face turned livid. "Who did this?" Lowell roared, his eyes sweeping across the scene. Brady immediately pointed at me and said, "It was him. He broke it." I retorted, "Don't believe him. He pushed me from behind." But Lowell didn't want to listen at all and interrupted me coldly. "Since you all don't admit it, I'll call the police." Hearing the alarm, Doshi's face turned pale instantly. She hurried forward and said, "Sir, please calm down. I am a professor at Hedell Medical College, and they are my students. Maybe this device can be repaired." Lowell pointed angrily at the debris on the ground and said, "Repair? This is a surgical robot developed by the Hedell Royal Hospital. The robotic arm is broken. Repairing it is impossible." I was shocked when I heard the name Hedell Royal Hospital. This device was obviously the work of Stewart. He is a legend in the medical field, and this robot represents the pinnacle of his technology. Dorsey tried to remedy the situation. "Since it cannot be repaired, we will compensate you for the cost of the device." "Compensation?" Lowell sneered. "This equipment is priceless. Even if you are rich, you can't afford it," he continued. "You have two choices. First, fix the equipment, and I will let you go. Second, I will call the police and contact the Hedell Medical College to expel all of you." When Louise and Brady heard the word fired, their faces turned pale. Louise glared at me and gritted her teeth and said, "This is all your fault. If you had kept your distance like us, none of this would have happened." Brady was not to be outdone. "That's right. You ruined your life, and you want to drag us down with it. You are so despicable." Dorsey had a splitting headache and tried to calm the situation. Quiet. This is all my responsibility, and I will take responsibility to the end. I will try to contact Dr. Stewart and ask him to help repair the equipment. Just when the atmosphere was tense, I suddenly said, I can fix this device. Brady immediately sneered. Don't be ridiculous. Do you think you can fix the machine developed by Dr. Turner himself? Stop bragging. Louise glared at me back. What makes you think you can repair such delicate equipment? That's ridiculous. I didn't say anything. I just squatted down and prepared to pick up the debris, but Dorsey stopped me. Randall, don't. This is not your responsibility. Please let me try, Miss Riley. I can fix it, I said firmly, but Dorsey still shook her head. Since he is so persistent, let him try, Louise said coldly, with disdain on her face. If he fixes it, I am willing to kneel down and lick the soles of his shoes. I sighed, shook my head, ignored their ridicule, turned and walked away, heading straight for the hotel's VIP elevator. Louise stamped her feet angrily. Look, he caused trouble, and now he just runs away. I heard her complaints, but I didn't stop. I went to the general manager's office, found Joshua, and told him what happened. Don't worry, we can pay for it, Joshua consoled me, but I shook my head. I'll fix it. I need you to assure them that the device can be repaired. Joshua looked at me in surprise, obviously not understanding why I was so insistent. For the Braden Hotel, which is worth $500 million, this amount of money is just a small amount. He thought it was just about the money, but for me it was a chance to prove myself, and I couldn't miss it. Chapter 13. I could have contacted Stewart directly and asked him to send a replacement unit to fix the problem, but I chose to fix it myself. This was an opportunity to prove myself. I told Joshua, don't tell anyone I fixed it. Just say there's a guest from the Hedell Royal Hospital in the hotel. I did this not to hide my identity, but to prevent Dorsey from feeling indebted to me. Joshua did as I instructed. Soon, the damaged robot was delivered to Joshua's office, and he prepared the tools and materials I needed. After checking, I found that the problem with the robot was not complicated. Only a few parts were broken, but the one that really needed to be repaired was the power circuit, which caused the entire system to crash. Luckily, I learned everything about this robot from Stewart. I whispered to myself. 30 minutes later, I had successfully repaired the device. I was a little confused at first when I turned on the robot, but that quickly became clearer as my mind replayed the details I had learned from Stewart. After the repairs were completed, I contacted Amari to help me reinstall the system. Next, I prepared to return to the exhibition hall. At this time, the atmosphere in the exhibition hall was still tense. Although the robot was sent for repair, everyone was waiting anxiously, hoping that the problem could be solved. When I returned to the lobby, Dorsey's eyes were full of surprise. She came over excitedly, hugged me, and said, Randall, good news. An employee of the Royal Hedell Hospital is willing to repair the robot. The problem is solved. Her warm hug made me blush a little, and I cleared my throat and whispered, Oh, that's great. Oh, great? Is that all you can say? Brady imitated my tone and continued to mock me with a disgusted smile. Louise also echoed, Randall, you ran away and left us here to suffer the consequences. Now that the problem has been solved, you still have the nerve to come back. She turned to Brady and asked curiously, why did that employee suddenly decide to help? Brady cleared his throat and said proudly, It's because of me, actually. My uncle is an employee of the Hedell Royal Hospital, and he happened to be a guest here today. My jaw dropped when I heard this. This guy lied to my face? When did I become his uncle? But Louise believed what Brady said. Oh, your uncle is so nice and helped us a lot. She looked at Brady with envy and was completely deceived by his words. Dorsey didn't doubt Brady's statement either. After all, he did come from a family of doctors, which made his lies sound more real. Randall, look at Brady. He solves problems, but you only create trouble. Aren't you ashamed? Louise looked at me with disdain, her eyes full of contempt. At the same time, Lowell was reporting the incident to Wesson, his voice trembling, obviously frightened by the chaos at the scene. On the way to the hotel, Wesson's emotions were on the verge of exploding. Today's car accident almost caused him to lose his grandson, which made him feel very stressed. When Lowell mentioned that the robot was handed over to someone else to repair, he was completely furious. What? You let someone else repair it? Are you crazy? On the other end of the phone, his voice was filled with anger. This robot is the culmination of Dr. Turner's life's work. Repairing it carelessly may cause data storage to be damaged. Do you know how serious the consequences are? Wesson ordered Lowell to turn on the speaker and said to everyone, Listen up. This robot is priceless. Any problem with it will cause us unbearable losses. The entire hall fell into deathly silence, and everyone held their breath, not knowing what would happen next. Chapter 14. Lowell nervously received Medina's order. Stop the people who are repairing the robot. I have to check it out myself. The hall fell into cold silence in an instant. Brady's uncle identity was pushed into the spotlight, and his face was covered in cold sweat, obviously not expecting that the consequences of his lies would be so serious. Well, we will soon know whether Brady's uncle is reliable, I said with a faint smile. Brady's face was pale, and his hands and feet were cold. Louise suddenly broke down and started crying, while Brady angrily accused me. This is all your fault. If you hadn't touched the robot, we wouldn't be in this situation. Dorsey tried to calm the chaos. Everyone calm down. I'll take all the blame. Maybe I can find someone to fix it. But Louise and Brady still blamed me, trying to put all the blame on me. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the door. Mr. Medina is here. The crowd automatically made way for a gray-haired old man who slowly walked in. His stern face made the atmosphere even more tense. Brady immediately pointed at me and yelled, "Mr. Medina, he was the one who broke your machine. We had nothing to do with this." Louise also echoed in shirking responsibility. Dorsey tried to argue, but Medina raised her hand to silence her. He walked towards me in silence, and everyone thought I was done. However, unexpectedly, Medina walked up to me, patted my shoulder gently, and laughed heartily. "You are my lucky star. This equipment has been perfectly repaired and upgraded." "Thank you." Everyone was stunned, especially Brady, who looked livid, obviously not expecting things to turn out like this. He hurried forward and lied. "Mr. Medina, it was actually my uncle who repaired the machine. This man did nothing." Medina turned to him coldly and said, "One person does need to be responsible for his or her actions, and that person is you. You lied and slandered others, and you tried to shirk responsibility." He ordered Lowell, "Get him out. I don't want to see this kind of person again." Brady turned pale and couldn't say a word. He was expelled on the spot. Louise lowered her head in panic, not daring to look at me, while Dorsey breathed a sigh of relief and looked at me gratefully. Medina turned to me, smiled, and asked, "Young man, would you like to tell me how you fixed it?" I calmly replied, "Just some things I learned recently. I hope it can help." Chapter 15. Joshua came rushing in with his iPad and played a surveillance video that clearly showed Brady deliberately pushing me. Brady panicked after seeing the evidence. "Mr. Medina, this is a misunderstanding. Please believe me, I don't need your explanation," Wesson interrupted him coldly. "You just told me how to punish the criminal, so I will do it." Hearing the word punishment, Brady's face turned pale instantly, and fear surged in his heart. "Call the police? He's going to send me to jail?" Brady could hardly stand. Wesson waved his hand and ordered the security guard to take Brady away. Brady tried to struggle and shouted, "My uncle fixed the machine. You can't do this." "Then ask your uncle to help you get bail." Wesson sneered and ignored him. Brady was taken away by the security guards, his face full of despair. Dorsey tried to dissuade him, but I said calmly, "Don't worry, Miss Riley. Mr. Medina won't actually send him to jail. He's just teaching him a lesson." Dorsey nodded and sighed. Medina's reputation made her believe that he would not abuse his power. After Brady left, the seminar officially began. Wison's speech was informative and interesting, and I benefited greatly from it. However, Louise was disturbed and kept wondering why Wesson was so friendly to me. She couldn't understand why a hospital director with a prominent status would treat me like this. She was full of questions and planned to find me after the meeting to ask for clarification. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was Tanya calling. She sobbed and said, "Randall, I miss you. Can we meet?" I walked out of the meeting room and asked coldly, "How dare you mention meeting? After you and Xiao Wensi betrayed me, you still had the nerve to contact me?" Tanya's crying voice came from the other end of the phone. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I don't want to live anymore, Randall. It's you who put me on this path." I was shocked to hear her threaten suicide and tried to comfort her. "Tanya, calm down. Let's talk about it. Don't do anything stupid." "Randall, do you remember where we had our first date?" She asked softly but dangerously, then hung up the phone. I stared at my phone in a daze, sweat dripping from my forehead. Even though we were separated, I couldn't ignore her suicide threats. I knew I had to make sure she was safe. Meanwhile, Tanya stood on the roof of the third teaching building of the Hedell Medical College with a smug smile on her face. Her plan was being implemented step by step. Through investigation, she learned that the old man I saved was actually the director of Hedell General Hospital. If she could use my connections to get an internship at the hospital, her future would be bright. Tanya had already decided to abandon Shaywins. In her opinion, he was no longer useful, and through me, she had the opportunity to climb higher up the ladder. Less than an hour later, I ran to the roof of the teaching building, panting, and saw Tanya standing there with a satisfied smile on her face. "You are finally here," she said softly. Chapter 16. When I rushed to the roof and saw Tanya standing on the edge admiring the view, I immediately realized that things were not as urgent as she had made it seem on the phone. Tanya wore makeup, a tight skirt and stockings, and even perfume. Would a person who really wanted to commit suicide dress up like this? "I'm glad you're here, Randall." She looked at me with affectionate eyes, and then threw herself into my arms without warning. Her soft body pressed against mine, the thin shirt failing to conceal her curves. I froze instinctively, even reacting inappropriately. But she didn't care at all, and even got closer to me. This instantly alerted me, so I took a deep breath and pushed her away. "That's enough. Tanya, we've broken up. Stop doing this," I said coldly. "If you have nothing else to do, I'll leave now," and turn around to leave. "Wait a minute." Tanya suddenly raised her voice, a trace of anger flashing across her face. "Can't you see that it was Shaywins who made me do that to you?" "Oh, really? Did he also force you to insult me and be intimate with him?" I asked back mockingly, my tone full of sarcasm. Tanya's face froze. She obviously didn't expect me to be so calm and smart. She was stunned for a moment, then quickly adjusted her mood and smiled charmingly. "Randall, we are all adults. Let's not dwell on the unpleasant things in the past. Isn't it good to enjoy the present?" Her voice was soft, and she took another step closer to me. "By the way, do you know who the boy you saved today is?" She licked her lips and continued. "He is the grandson of Wesson Medina, the director of Hedell General Hospital. If you are willing to let me intern in his hospital for 3 months, I can be your plaything on call around the clock." As she spoke, she slowly took off her shirt, revealing her fair skin, and her tight skirt was slightly lifted up, showing her slender legs. She gently lay on the floor, posing in a very seductive posture. My heart raced. Tanya's beauty was undeniably hard to ignore, but I forced myself to calm down and realize that her purpose was more complicated than the temptation at hand. Tanya looked at me and added, "Honey, if you think I'm not enough, I have 2 roommates. They're both very attractive and have never had a boyfriend." She whispered seductively, "As long as you agree to my terms, I can invite them to serve you and even arrange all the special scenes for you. Whatever you like, I can satisfy you." As she spoke, she stroked her chest with her hands, licked her lips, and her eyes were full of seduction. "You can even take them to a private place and have fun without any restraints. As long as you help me." Her voice was as soft as a venomous snake. I took a deep breath and forced myself to look away, trying to suppress the anger and disgust in my heart. I understood that her purpose was just to use me for her own benefit. Chapter 17. Absolutely not. I rejected Tanya without hesitation. Although, as a healthy man, I inevitably had some physical reaction to her temptation, but I felt completely disgusted after hearing her despicable words at the end. I began to wonder how I could have fallen in love with such a woman in the past. "Tanya, you can even betray your friends for your own benefit. You make me feel extremely disgusted," I said coldly and turned around to leave. "Randall, don't go." Seeing this, Tanya hurriedly put on her clothes, ran to the edge of the roof, and leaned half of her body out. "If you don't agree to my terms, I'll jump from here." I stopped and looked at her coldly. "Then why didn't you jump? If you really wanted to jump off the building, you wouldn't have put on your clothes first." Her performance was not convincing to me. Of course Tanya would not jump off the building. She had not yet realized her dream of marrying into a wealthy family. So how could she easily end her life? Hearing what I said, she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily, "Randall, I won't let you go. Just wait and see." I left the rooftop without looking back, leaving her alone there. She clenched her fists, her face full of hatred, and then took out a small camera hidden in the corner. Tanya had planned to use the camera to record our intimate scenes and use them to threaten me. If I didn't help her, she even planned to expose the scenes and destroy my reputation. Useless trash. She gritted her teeth in anger and smashed the camera into pieces with a brick. "Randall, how dare you insult me like this? I will make you pay the price." Meanwhile, after the medical seminar, Dorsey and Louise returned to school together. Although Dorsey was surprised that Wesson and I knew each other, she didn't think much about it and thought I was just lucky. However, Louise felt completely different. She looked thoughtful the whole time, depressed but oddly excited, thinking over how I had behaved, especially how I hadn't mentioned my acquaintance with Wesson at the hotel. How embarrassing, Louise thought to herself. She felt ashamed to think that she had despised me. But at the same time, she felt secretly excited. If Randall gets an internship at Hedell General Hospital through Wesson, maybe I can use this opportunity to establish a relationship with him, she thought to herself. From her perspective, even just for the chance to date me, as long as she didn't give too much away, wasn't even a bad thing. After all, it would help her quickly achieve her goal of becoming a famous doctor. Just as she was immersed in her thoughts, her roommate suddenly shouted, "Look, there's a video going viral on TikTok. A young man saved a little boy on the street." Within seconds, all the girls in the dormitory gathered around and talked excitedly. "Wow, this boy is so cool. Over 2 million views and 500,000 likes in 4 hours," Selena said excitedly. "He might be on the news soon. So jealous of him," another girl added. Louise's eyes widened, and the scene on the screen completely stunned her. The person in the video was none other than me, Randall Carter. She murmured in disbelief. "He is Randall. We know each other." Chapter 18 Popular. "You know him, right?" Selena turned and looked at Louise and asked. "Yes, he is a student of my new tutor. We met once." At this moment, Louise's mind was filled with complicated thoughts. Her heart sank into her stomach. "Wow, that's great." Selena hugged Louise excitedly. "You should ask him out. I want to meet him. If I make a video with him and post it on TikTok, I'll be very popular too. Maybe I can become one of the big streamers." Like Louise, Selena was a beauty. She is a TikTok anchor who makes videos of herself dancing and trying on clothes. She already has more than 30,000 followers. Her biggest dream is to become a big anchor on the platform. Selena quickly made a video of her and Louise and posted it online. She spliced Randall's video, which was highly recommended, with her own video, announcing to everyone that the internet celebrity Dr. Hero was her school classmate. She promised that if the audience liked her video and followed her, she would arrange an interview with Randall for them. TikTok recommended the video on its For You page. In just a few minutes, everyone close to Louise and Selena had seen the video. It was also shared multiple times. The comments poured in immediately. "Wow, that guy's so lucky. He saved Wesson Medina's grandson. Wesson Medina, isn't that the director of Hedell General Hospital? That's great. What reward will he get for his good deed? Will he be offered a job at that famous hospital? His life is about to change dramatically because of his kindness. I'm so happy for him. Randall deserves a lot of credit. Do you know his dorm room number? I'd like to go see him." It was at this moment that Louise finally realized why Wesson was so nice to Randall. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and Tanya came in a second later. When she saw them all sitting together, her brows furrowed. She asked, "What are you looking at?" Selena quickly told her what was happening. Contrary to everyone else's expectations, Tanya was not surprised at all. She sneered and expressed her contempt. "I thought it was something important. Anyway, that guy's just a loser, nothing special." Louise and the others were stunned. Tanya told them the fact that Randall's right hand was disabled. She was sure that although Wesson might think highly of Randall and hire him, Randall's disability would not be hidden for long. He is a loser, and this fact cannot be changed. His luck and arrogance will only last for a short time, no matter how lucky he is to get opportunities that others cannot get. His right hand was disabled and trembling. If it trembled during surgery, it would be a medical malpractice. When Tanya finished speaking, Louise and Selena silently felt a hint of regret. Louise, in particular, felt that she had been too impulsive. She had forgotten that Randall's hand was also injured. Getting an internship at Hedell General Hospital through him meant that she might eventually be implicated. Brady seems to be a better option than Randall. Brady, on the other hand, was confined to his home. He was taken to the police station by security guards of the medical seminar. After Wesson and the police severely reprimanded him, he was asked to write a self-review. The school did not expel him, and he did not need to compensate for the losses he caused. However, he had a bad record on his file, which would become a stain on his career. Brady's heart was filled with hatred for Randall. He gritted his teeth, hoping to retaliate against him as soon as possible. Brady was browsing videos on his phone when he saw the video of Randall rescuing the boy. It was shared by Louise. Tracing back, he found Selena's account. She was the first person to post this video. Brady sneered and started calling his friends. This time, he wants to ruin Randall's reputation. Chapter 19, Cyberbullying. Brady and his friends started to diss Randall under the video posted by Selena. They talked about his disabled right hand. What's so great about what he did? It's easy to take out a shard of glass. Anyone with deft hands can do it. If I were there, I would have done it too. It's no big deal. I can't believe people are praising Randall. You have no idea what a risk he took operating on that boy. His right hand was crippled. He couldn't even hold the scalpel steady. That poor boy could have died. What? His right hand is disabled. Yes. Everyone at Hedell Medical School knew that Randall's right hand was disabled after a car accident. When he held a scalpel, his right hand would shake uncontrollably, as if he had Parkinson's disease. Why would he risk showing off and possibly risking the boy's life? What an idiot. Netizens who knew nothing about the truth accepted Brady and his friends' words without hesitation. They blamed Randall for taking such a big risk. Humph. A person who doesn't care about the patient's life is not worthy of being a doctor. I strongly suspect that Randall rushed to save the boy because he knew who Wesson was. If the operation was safe, Shaywins would have done it long ago. You have a point. Shaywins assessed the situation and decided the risk was too great. But Randall, out of greed, gambled with the boy's life. This shows he is not fit to be a doctor. Goodness, to think I admired him. Thanks for pointing out what a vile fellow he is. I was sick of him. Ha! What has this world become? People will do anything to gain fame and fortune. It's sad that innocent and kind people don't get the same recognition that mean and cunning people get. A lot of people said bad things about Randall. Meanwhile, Randall's roommates were scrolling through TikTok during their lunch break when they came across the video. At first, they showed the video to their friends and boasted about it. But the negative comments suddenly dampened their mood. They are talking nonsense. Friends said, Randall is not that kind of person. Randall's roommate, Judd Porter, made an angry comment. His comments caused dissatisfaction among many people. Brady and his friends, along with several others, began attacking Judd. Oh, he's that vicious guy's roommate. Birds of a feather flock together. Randall is a loser. His roommate, Judd, must be a loser too. Randall was eating when he saw this TikTok video. He smiled proudly. He decided to leave a comment stating that as a doctor, this was his responsibility. Just as he was about to type, he saw the first of the hateful comments. He also noticed several people verbally abusing his roommate. They described him and Judd in the worst possible terms. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves? How could you believe such an unverified lie? Randall was so angry that he didn't hesitate to defend Judd. However, many people began to laugh at him after he made this comment. Oh, here comes a loser. How could you speak to us so disrespectfully? You are a beast in human form. Instead of admitting your mistakes, you defend yourself. How shameless. Oh my God. It's people like you who bring discredit to doctors. You are destroying the reputation of the Hedell Medical College. The college should expel you immediately. A lot of people said a lot of bad things about Randall. Randall couldn't keep up with all the people who were against him. When he tried to defend himself, they threw more insults at him. He began to consider hiring someone to defend himself or reporting the case to the police. Suddenly, an account named Kindness liked and reposted the video of Randall rescuing the boy. The caption read, "Not all heroes wear capes." This young man is the perfect example of a selfless doctor. He risked his career to save a boy's life. His actions are to be commended. The account didn't have many followers, but because the video was shared at a crucial time and captioned in a positive way, the post went viral. Brady and his followers criticized the person behind the account. Fuck you. You don't know anything. And who are you anyway? Mercy. What a weird name. You shouldn't be commenting on this video. Go do something productive, old man. People who knew him said he was disabled. He almost killed that child. Why do you support him? Many malicious comments flooded under the kind post. At this moment, Brady was full of satisfaction. He felt very proud. He felt like a general leading millions of soldiers. Any netizen who dared to defend Randall would be met with a barrage of insults. However, Brady's joy was soon broken by another video, and the situation took a turn. The video was released by the official account of Hedell Royal Hospital. Chapter 20, Reversal. Several screenshots are shown in the video. It contains insulting comments from different netizens. The title of the video is pretty straightforward. The director of Hedell Royal Hospital, Dr. Stuart Turner, had previously shared and commented on a video of a young man saving a little boy. However, several people insulted and said some bad things to our director. This is quite disappointing. We at Hoda Royal Hospital officially declare that the young doctor is a role model that everyone in the medical community should emulate. He is a hero. We commend his bravery and kindness. The announcement was made via the hospital's official TikTok account, so it caused a stir online. Many people turned against Bradley and other naysayers. No one was spared. The entire platform became heated. Damn it, how dare they insult Dr. Turner? They have no morals. These people are just plain stupid. Dr. Turner has made a huge contribution to the medical profession. Not only has he saved the lives of seriously ill patients, he has also created many life-saving devices. He does not deserve to be disrespected. They're perverts. They mess with the wrong people today. I'll make them suffer the consequences myself. Brady lay in bed, immersed in the joy of this online war. He was in a group call with his friends, and his phone was vibrating wildly. Did you hear my phone vibrate, guys? I'm sure a lot of people like my comment. If things keep going this way, I might become TikTok famous for exposing Randall. 1 million followers would be a good start for me. Hold on. I'll read you the comments. Brady was in high spirits, humming a tune as he opened the notification. But when he read the comments, he froze. I know this guy. His name is Brady Truman, and he goes to Hedell Medical School. Oh my God. I can't stand him. He's such a scumbag. I'm sure he's jealous of that heroic doctor. Fuck you. You bastard. How dare you insult Dr. Turner? Harsh comments flooded into the comment section of Brady's video. He was flooded with notifications within seconds. Thousands of messages also landed in his inbox. Thanks to Stewart's involvement, the event became the third most popular topic. This was just the beginning of Brady's woes. Wesson released a surveillance video through his official account. This video became the fifth hot topic. The video shows a handsome young man carefully observing a device. He is so focused that he does not notice another person pushing him from behind. The device immediately falls. Because of Wesson's identity, he has many fans. Look, that young man being pushed looks a lot like the heroic doctor. That's him. Yes, that's him. Their outfits are exactly the same. Damn it, he was framed by the guy who pushed him. Who is that disgusting guy? Why did he act so maliciously? That's Brady Truman. I'm sure it's him. He's the guy who was inciting people to say bad things about this heroic doctor. What a jerk. He's so mean. We haven't scolded him enough. Let's go on. Brady hadn't recovered from the previous counterattack. He thought it was over. However, he once again received a barrage of insults. Randall was still thinking about how to solve this problem when he received news from his roommates. They all urged him to watch TikTok now. As soon as Randall opened the app, his eyes widened. What happened? I've been racking my brain to come up with a solution. Why does my problem seem to have been solved? He was confused when he saw all the hashtags and trending topics were about him. The first trending topic read, "Apologize to the hero doctor." A second read, "Stuart Turner, renowned medical legend, suffers cyberbullying." A third read, "Dr. Turner praises a brave young man for saving a seriously injured child." A fourth read, "Does anyone know Brady Truman, the despicable young man who incited thousands to insult Dr. Turner and the heroic doctor?" A fifth read, "Ban Brady Truman from TikTok." Randall called his sister to comfort her. Then he called Wesson to express his gratitude. Wesson smiled. "You're welcome, Randall. I have to do something to help you. I can't just sit there and watch my benefactor being bullied. Regardless, you're welcome." Afterwards, Randall also called Stewart to express his gratitude. But it was Amari who answered the phone. Before Randall could speak, she said in an emotionless tone, "Dr. Turner has prepared a test for you. He said that if you pass this test, you will get another gift." After that, she hung up the phone. Randall couldn't help wondering why Amari was always so cold. Will she smile? She was so cold and reserved just now. Is she like this to everyone, he thought. Stewart's first gift to Randall was a 5-star hotel. Randall couldn't help but wonder what the next gift would be. Soon after the call, Randall received a text message from Amari, telling him that everything had been arranged. The examination will be held at Laboratory 1 of the Hedell Medical College at 8 a.m. tomorrow. He needs to treat the patient. In order to improve his knowledge, Randall began to study. At 10 o'clock in the evening, he received a notification. Someone mentioned him in their class group. That person was Rosita Hayes, the leader of their class study group. She revealed that there would be an event at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and she invited Randall to accompany her. Chapter 21, Rosita's Plan. The next day, Randall went to meet Rosita as planned. When I reached the lab building, she was already there. Rosita wore a light blue dress that showed off her long legs. She wore sheer stockings that accentuated the perfect curves of her legs. There were 2 small holes in the stockings, revealing her smooth skin. Anyone who saw them would have an urge to tear the stockings off. Rosita became smug when she saw Randall staring at her beautiful legs. However, she deliberately showed a hint of impatience on her face. Randall, you're late. Do you know how long I've been waiting for you? Why is she complaining? Didn't she force herself to come here? Randall rolled his eyes. He had never wanted to be here in the first place. Knowing it was unwise to argue with her, he suppressed his anger and asked, "What's wrong?" "Come with me," Rosita said briefly. She turned and walked into the building. Randall felt helpless. He follows Rosita inside as he has to take a test that Stewart has arranged. To his surprise, they both ended up in the same lab. As soon as Rosita walked into the door of Lab 1, she glanced at Randall furtively. She sneered to herself. She thought he would turn away in anger, but he followed her inobediently. She believed that he was indeed a stupid loser. Rosita reasoned that her outfit was unnecessary. She felt that even if she wasn't dressed so seductively, Randall would still fall for her. Judging from the ease with which he was brought in, she had no fears of success in her plan. When Randall entered the operating room, he saw some people. They are Louise, Shaywin's, Tanya, and Randall's other classmates. He was surprised not to see Brady here. A second later, Randall remembered that Brady had been attacked online yesterday. It looked like Brady wanted to keep it low-key until things died down. The people present were discussing with each other. Based on their words, they seemed to be arguing fiercely about why they were called here. It wasn't until a few seconds after Randall entered the room that Shaywin's and the others finally noticed his presence. Sean's pointed at Randall and sneered. "I was a little nervous before, but after seeing Randall, I feel relieved now." "Why?" Tanya asked curiously, standing next to him. Shaywin suddenly burst into laughter. "Relax, guys. Since this loser is here to take the test, it means the test is not difficult at all." The entire operating room erupted in laughter. They nodded in agreement with Shaywin's words. Their previously depressed mood became lively. Randall shook his head, deciding not to give Shaywin's the satisfaction of irritating him. In his opinion, it wasn't worth getting angry about Shaywin's. Suddenly, there were the sounds of approaching footsteps. The next second, the door opened. Doshi hurried in. Scanning the crowd, she said, "Hello, everyone. I called you here because there are two special patients who want students from this class to treat them. Although I don't know why they made such a request, you must be careful because they have a strong background. Their parents promised that whoever can successfully perform surgery on them will get an internship opportunity at Hedell General Hospital." "Wow," the students gasped excitedly. Thousands of medical students graduate from the Hedell Medical College every year. However, only a handful are employed by the Hedell General Hospital. It is well known that every doctor who practices at Hedell General Hospital has a good start in his career afterwards. The only person who was not shocked or excited was Randall. He had long known that Amari had arranged this test at Stewart's request, so his expression remained unchanged. He wondered why patients didn't pick him and ask him to operate on them. He suddenly realized that maybe Amari arranged it this way because she didn't want to expose his identity. This is what Randall wanted. Suddenly, Randall's eyes fell on Rosita. She didn't look as surprised and excited as the others. It seemed that she had known all this for a long time. Randall immediately had a bad feeling. Soon, his suspicions were confirmed. Dorsey motioned for everyone to be quiet and continued. "There are too many people to operate on all the patients at once. You will be divided into two groups to discuss how to treat the patients. Now, please divide yourselves into groups." "I've formed a group," Rosita suddenly announced, raising her hand. Randall was surprised when he saw that her group included Chris Wright, Louise, Shavins, and Tanya. Since there were 10 students, only 5 were left, and Randall and the other 4 automatically became another group. His team included Bella Patel, Eric Graves, Brixton Garman, and Hamlin Bryant. They were dissatisfied with this arrangement. Their faces were gloomy, and they stared at Randall with contempt. They didn't want him in their group. Sean's laughed and patted Rosita on the shoulder, saying, "Rosita, good job. We will definitely win." Rosita smiled smugly. "I had no choice. Randall kept pestering me to come here." Tanya added, "At first, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to pass the test. But now that Randall is on the opposing team, I am relieved. We will definitely beat them easily." Randall's teammates felt heavy-hearted and gloomy when they heard this. They despise Randall, except Bella. She feels sympathy for him. She tried to defend Randall. Randall may not have the physical ability to perform the surgery, but he has great medical knowledge. He can give us the instructions while the rest of us do the operation. Everything will be fine. "How is that possible? Let's be realistic," Hamlin retorted. No sane patient would agree to have a disabled person treat them. Whether he does it himself or not, we will fail because of him. Hamlin made no secret of his displeasure with Randall joining the team. In his opinion, Randall had doomed them to be losers. He even hoped that Randall would not show up today. Suddenly, hurried footsteps were heard outside. Quiet, Doshi ordered, his face changing. You stop making noise. The patients and their families will be here soon. Chapter 22, Conjoined Sisters. Dorsey's words caught the students' attention, and they stopped arguing. Their eyes turned toward the door. A second later, the door was pushed open, and 3 burly men in black suits and sunglasses walked in. When Randall saw them, his eyes narrowed into slits. They reminded him of the villains that Shaywins had sent after him. However, these men seemed much more powerful. A slender, beautiful girl with blonde hair and blue eyes appeared at the door. She attracted the attention of all the boys present. They all felt sorry for her. Why would God make her sick? The girls, by contrast, were scornful. They were annoyed by the boys' performance. What happened next shocked everyone. Another beautiful girl who looked exactly like the first one revealed herself behind the burly man. Their beauty is extraordinary. Girls like them always make men crazy enough to pursue them. However, the boys' reaction was not like that. The only emotion in their eyes was fear and shock. This is because the twins were joined at the head. Their skulls were joined at the sides. The 2 girls looked like angels bound together. They are beautiful, but also very strange. Behind them was a middle-aged couple. They were both wearing fancy clothes. It was obvious that they were wealthy. The girls bore a resemblance to both of them, so it was easy to tell that they were their parents. At this time, Dorsey stepped forward and said, "Hello, this is Alyssa and Aubrey Wallace. They are today's patients." Afterwards, she turned on the projector and gave the students a detailed introduction to the girls. It turns out the girls' skulls weren't the only parts connected. They also shared arteries that connected their bodies. In reality, they share one heart, which is inside Alyssa. Their health had been good for years, but began to deteriorate as their hearts showed signs of failure due to chronic stress. Dorsey looked at everyone and said, "Now that you know their condition, you should start thinking of ways to treat them. If any of you feel that this is too much for you to handle, you can give up." The students were surprised by the twins' condition, but they did not want to give up because they wanted to get an internship at Hedell General Hospital. They split into 2 groups and started discussing. After 30 minutes, Hamlin raised his hand and said, "Our group has a plan." When all eyes turned to him, Hamlin felt a chill. He cleared his throat and continued, "It's easy to solve this problem. Since Alyssa's heart function is not good, we just need to transplant a new heart for her." Randall immediately shook his head to disagree. "No, I don't agree. Transplantation is not a permanent solution to the problem. In addition to the problem of transplant rejection, if the new heart has problems in a few years, will they have to undergo another heart transplant?" The girls' parents looked disappointed. They had previously considered a heart transplant, but the idea was almost immediately rejected. Rosita jumped at the chance to prove herself and excitedly stood up and said, "My team has come up with a radical treatment plan." Apparently, Alyssa's heart failed because it had to do twice the work. To restore it to health, we just need to separate them and let Aubrey's heart work. Rosita produced a case file showing that such an operation had indeed occurred in the past, and the success rate was not low. It looked like she had prepared for it. The girls' parents' eyes lit up when they heard Rosita's idea. They decided to separate the girls. "No!" Randall shouted, standing up. All eyes turned to him. Many of his classmates laughed at him. Under the suspicious gaze, Randall looked calm. "Aubrey's heart is intact on X-ray. However, we don't know yet if it will work properly. We have to make sure both of them can survive on their own before attempting to separate them. Otherwise, their lives will be at risk. A heart transplant is less risky than a separation." "Who are you?" The girl's father frowned slightly and looked at Randall. Rosita scoffed. "He's just a loser." "Ignore him." "A loser?" A confused look appeared on the twins' father's face. Rosita immediately told him what happened to Randall. When the man heard that Randall's right hand was injured, his face changed. He looked Randall up and down and asked in dissatisfaction, "What's wrong with this medical school? Why would they appoint a disabled person as part of the team treating my daughter? He even has the guts to give us medical advice. What an irony." "You're right, sir. A loser like him shouldn't be here, let alone contributing to such an important discussion." Chauvins echoed overly enthusiastically. Others followed suit, and it was clear that they all believed Rosita's opinion of Randall. no matter what Randall said. Randall shook his head. Since you were so stubborn, just wait and see the result. Shut up. You're the stubborn one. You need to wake up and face reality. A disabled loser like you has no place here, right? Randall, you're going to be sorely disappointed when the surgery is successful. You're going to be humiliated. Shaywins and his teammates looked at Randall defiantly. Soon after, surgeons began preparing for surgery. Others walked out of the operating room and let the doctors do their work. About 8 hours later, the lead surgeon walked out of the operating room. The operation was a success. The girls are fine. They will regain consciousness after the anesthesia wears off, he said with a smile. Rosita and her teammates cheered after hearing the good news. Rosita looked at Randall with contempt, muttering, "Thank God the idiot was finally humiliated. To think he almost made our idea go away." Charles glanced at Randall and commented sarcastically, "Don't waste your energy on this loser. He's not worth your anger." "You're right, Shans. He's not worthy of being my opponent," Rosita said with a smile. The girls were taken to the intensive care unit. An hour later, Alyssa regained consciousness and her vital signs were good. Everyone was ecstatic again. Rosita received praise from her teammates and professors. Her plan was a success. At this point, Dorsey decided to announce that the internship position would go to Rosita's group. Rosita smacked her lips at Randall and said arrogantly, "It's all thanks to you, Randall. You were in the other team, so I was able to lead my team to victory. If you were in my team, I would have failed. Now help. There's something wrong with Aubrey. The anesthesia has worn off, but she's still unconscious. Need to be checked." A nurse suddenly rushed in and sounded the alarm. Chapter 23, Broken Parents. The smiles on everyone's faces disappeared instantly. Rosita turned pale when she heard the nurse's words. She screamed, "This is impossible. My plan was perfect. Are you sure the anesthesia has worn off? If so, why hasn't she woken up yet? Did the anesthesiologist overdose her?" "What do you mean? If you have any doubts, you can check the records. Don't ruin my reputation with your speculations," the anesthesiologist yelled at Rosita. As a student, Rosita didn't dare to talk back. Dorsey immediately interrupted. "Stop arguing. We need to go see what's wrong with the patient." Everyone rushed to the intensive care unit. Rosita noticed the heart rate monitor and muttered, "Aside from a little low blood pressure, she's fine. Why is she still in a coma?" Stewart has performed surgery on conjoined twins before. Randall suddenly recalled a similar operation he had watched before. He stared at the patient's chest for a long time. Aubrey had not undergone any heart surgery in the past, and her arteries were completely normal. But why hasn't she woken up yet? Then it dawned on Randall. She has not regained consciousness because she has never used her heart. Her heart had not yet fully begun to function like an adult's. It was not pumping enough blood to sustain her body. It seemed that very little blood was flowing to her brain. Worse, the oxygen level in her blood was extremely low. If this continues, she will never wake up. The faces of the other people present were filled with confusion. A doctor suddenly came in with an examination report and said seriously, "We just found that Aubrey's heart can't supply enough blood for an adult like her. If it is not corrected immediately, she will never regain consciousness." This news was a bolt from the blue for Aubrey's parents. Their legs suddenly felt weak and they fell to the ground. The couple clutched their chests, their hearts aching. They could not accept the doctor's report that one of their daughters would remain in a vegetative state forever while the other was healthy and active. No, no, no. This can't be happening. If I had known, I wouldn't have agreed to their separation. They could have stayed awake together the whole time. At this moment, Rosita's mouth opened wide. Her face turned pale. Her mind was in a mess. Aubrey's father turned to her and said, "This is all your fault. Why is my daughter still in a coma? You'd better wake her up now. If she becomes a vegetable, I will make you live a life worse than death." The twins' parents had bad tempers. Now that things have come to this, they have no hesitation in getting angry at the medical team. Shaywins yelled at him. "What do you mean? We have tried our best. If it weren't for us, both of your daughters would have died. You should be thankful to us. At least one of your daughters is alive. Don't be ungrateful. Yeah, having a daughter is better than having no daughter at all. It's not like you don't have kids," Tanya chimed in defiantly. The twins' father was filled with rage. Veins bulged on his forehead. He rushed towards Shaywins and slapped him hard. "If you had told us only one would survive, we would have opted for a heart transplant," he roared. Alyssa lay on a nearby bed and cried. "If my sister is in a vegetative state because we're separated, I'd rather die. I can't live without her." The twins' father was heartbroken. He roared at the medical team like an angry lion. You incompetents! You made us believe that both of them would make it. Mark my words, if Aubrey doesn't make it, I will kill you all. Not everyone agrees with Rosita's idea. Randall doesn't agree. Bella suddenly whispered. Her voice was low, but loud enough for everyone present to hear. They all turned to look at Randall. He stood beside Aubrey's bed, lost in thought, his eyes fixed on her chest. Young man, do you have any way to save my daughter? The twins' father asked excitedly. Randall shrugged and replied, as you heard before, I'm just a loser who can't even hold a scalpel. How can I save your daughter's life? The twins' father heard the sarcasm in his words. He knew that Randall was angry about his previous attitude. Swallowing his pride, he knelt at Randall's feet and slapped himself hard. I shouldn't have spoken to you in that way. I didn't recognize your talent. Please forgive me. Randall didn't mean for him to be like this. He just wanted to vent his anger. Seeing this poor man, his heart softened. I have a solution. Not only can I cure Aubrey's heart failure, but I can also ensure that the twins live separately and independently in the future. Everyone else was shocked by his words. How could you possibly do that? You're lying, Randall. Rosita suddenly shouted. Randall turned to face her and her companions and said softly, It doesn't matter if you don't believe me. He was confident because he had seen videos of Stewart working on countless similar cases and saving patients like magic. The medical veteran has performed surgery on several sets of conjoined twins, and even triplets. Fearing that Randall would lose his temper again, the twins' father yelled at Rosita, Shut up, idiot. You don't have a chance anymore. Let this gentleman speak. Rosita's face turned red instantly. Her chest heaved, and her heart was filled with anger. She felt even angrier when she saw Randall with a peaceful smile on his face. She prayed that Randall would fail completely. Unwilling to back down, she said, Go ahead and operate on her. If you succeed, I will kneel at your feet and apologize. But if you fail, you must crawl at my feet. Can we make a deal? Deal, Randall replied, his smile growing wider. Chapter 24, the operation was successful. Randall turned to the twins' father and said, I can treat your daughter, but there are 2 conditions. First, you need to allow me to perform the surgery myself. Second, I must also choose my own doctor to cooperate with me during the operation. Do you agree? What makes you think you're qualified to lead a surgical team? Rosita immediately laughed at him. She looked at the twins' father and added, Aren't you afraid that this guy will kill your daughter? After hearing this, the twins' father showed a skeptical expression on his face. His heart began to beat faster, staring at Randall's right hand. Seeing his ability being questioned again, Randall said lightly, If you don't want me to continue, forget it. I agree to your terms. Please do as you wish. The twins' father was very flustered and immediately agreed. Randall then called Amari and asked her to arrange some doctors to help him. These doctors are Stewart's subordinates, and they have many years of experience in the medical field. Even if they saw Randall's excellent skills during the operation, they would not be too surprised. After all, Stewart would never accept an ordinary person as his apprentice. About 30 minutes later, 4 doctors from Hedell Royal Hospital arrived. After exchanging pleasantries with Randall, they carefully pushed the twins into the operating room. Outside the operating room, others paced and discussed. Rosita tapped her chin lightly and asked, What's going on? Where did those 4 doctors come from? Why did the hospital management allow those strangers to perform surgery here? The hospital director glared at Rosita and replied disdainfully, Those doctors are from Dr. Turner's hospital. How dare you question their abilities? All the students were shocked to hear the news. Who is Randall? Why was he able to summon 4 doctors from the Hedell Royal Hospital at such a short notice? Just as people were still trying to figure out the reasons behind Randall's strange abilities, the light above the operating room door turned green. The door was pushed open, and 4 doctors came out pushing a huge bed. The twins' heads were not joined together, but their outer thighs were glued together. They were taken to the intensive care unit and regained consciousness more than an hour later. Oh, Aubrey! Alyssa cried when she saw her sister wake up. She held her hand and rubbed her cheek. The twins' parents stood beside them, smiling with relief. For them, it didn't matter that their daughters were conjoined again. What mattered was that they were both alive and well. Rosita realized that she was a loser. She couldn't let go of her pride and tried to leave the ward quietly. Where do you want to go, Rosita? Have you forgotten the bet you made with Randall? Bella said suddenly. Rosita paused. Biting her lower lip, she said stubbornly, I didn't lose. Randall boasted that he could heal them and let them live independent lives. He didn't do it. They are reconnected, just like at the beginning. There are no losers or winners here, so I don't need to apologize to him. Hearing this, Randall sneered. I didn't win? You can check Aubrey's EKG monitor. Everyone in the ward turned to the monitor next to Aubrey's bed. The number on it was only 1/3 of a normal heartbeat. But it was a good start because before Randall's surgery, her heart was beating like a dead person. How is this possible? Rosita exclaimed in surprise. The other doctors were confused as well. It shows her heart is beating. What's going on? Why? I thought you let them share Alyssa's heart like before. Randall's lips curled up into a smug smile. Aubrey has never had a functioning heart since she was born. That's why I can't sustain a blood supply for an adult. I reconnected the twins. She receives blood from Alyssa's heart while her own heart is gradually being trained. At the same time, the pressure on Alyssa's heart is reduced, so it won't fail again. It will take about 2 to 3 months for Aubrey's heart to work independently. By then, we can perform the separation surgery on the twins. After that, the two of them will be able to live healthy and normal lives. Almost everyone in the ward had admiration in their eyes. The morale of Tanya, Shaywins, Rosita, and their companions was crushed. Rosita scratched her head and muttered, why didn't I think of this method? Shaywin stared at Randall suspiciously and suddenly shouted, Randall is just a loser. How could he come up with such a good plan? I don't believe it. Randall ignored his suspicion. He just stared at Rosita and said, now do you agree that you lost? At this moment, all eyes turned to Rosita. Embarrassment made her cheeks burn. She avoided their gazes and thought about how to escape. But after thinking it over, she realized that it would be foolish to run away. If she didn't accept the failure now, her reputation would be ruined and no hospital would be willing to hire her. She finally swallowed her pride and knelt before Randall. Her face was filled with shame and sadness. I admit defeat. I shouldn't have framed you or doubted you. My ideas aren't as good as yours. Rosita felt very embarrassed and immediately ran out of the ward after apologizing. Afterwards, Dorsey excitedly pulled Randall aside. Is your right hand completely healed? She asked curiously, grabbing his right hand. Randall looked at Dorsey, the truth on his lips. But on second thought, he decided not to say it. No, not yet. I didn't operate on the twins myself. It was the doctors I hired who did it, and I just watched. Even if there was nothing wrong with my hands, I don't have enough experience to perform such an operation, he replied with a smile. Dorsey thought about his words and soon understood his reasons. Smiling, she said, anyway, you were the mastermind behind this brilliant plan. If it weren't for you, the twins wouldn't be saved today. Randall shrugged. Well, I happen to have seen a video of Dr. Turner doing a similar procedure, so it was an easy idea for me to come up with. Unbeknownst to Randall and Dorsey, Rosita was still hearing their conversation. She was eavesdropping on their conversation. At this moment, she was furious. She wanted to question Randall immediately. Chapter 25 Supreme VIP Customer. In a fit of rage, Rosita rushed towards Randall and shouted, You liar, you rely on others. So what? Randall replied indifferently. I said I would choose the doctor who supported me during the operation, and you didn't object. Besides, what's wrong with me learning from Mr. Turner's previous operation? It just proves that I am more experienced and knowledgeable than you. After saying that, Randall left. Rosita stared at Randall's back, breathing angrily. Although she wanted to talk back, she was speechless. Randall was right. She had only herself to blame for losing the bet. On the other hand, Shaywins and company looked terrible. They couldn't process what had just happened. How had Randall become so good overnight? In an uneasy state, Tanya held Shaywin's hand and asked, Is Randall recovered? He will take revenge on us. Shaywin scoffed, Don't worry. Even if Randall's right hand heals, there's nothing he can do to us. He's still the same weak guy I know. If he crosses the line or provokes me, I'll crush him like a bug. Shaywin said, recalling how he had sent 2 rogues to cause trouble for Randall's sister a few days ago. Suddenly, the door of the ward was kicked open from outside, and Rosita walked in angrily. Where's Randall? Louise asked. She regretted not handling her relationship with him properly. She believes Randall's background is stronger than others think. Rosita angrily said, He's gone. He's such a liar. Bah! Afterwards, she tells them that she just overheard a conversation between Randall and Dorsey. Then everyone realized why Randall could come up with such great ideas and why he cheated to win today. In order to discredit him and get revenge on him, they immediately go and tell the twins' parents what they have just discovered. However, they were met with a cold reception. The couple didn't care how Randall did it. Because he saved their daughter's life, he was a winner in their eyes. The couple didn't want to hear anyone say anything bad about Randall. When the students tried to explain further, they kicked them out, saying the twins needed a break. It took only a few days for Alyssa and Aubrey to fully recover, and after a general checkup, it was confirmed that they were doing just as well as Randall had predicted. Amari called again. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter. You have passed the test. In addition to the internship position at Hedell General Hospital, you will also receive another reward." Amari's cold and sexy voice floated into Randall's ears the moment he answered the phone. "What reward?" Randall was curious. "Well, here's a credit card with a limit of $10 million. Spend as much as you like. We'll pay the bill at the end of each month." Randall exclaimed in amazement. "A limit of $10 million? And you'll pay the bill?" "Yes, you heard me right. The card will be delivered to you soon." As Amari finished speaking, there was a knock on Randall's dormitory door. He opened the door and saw a burly man handing him an envelope. Randall took the envelope and tore it open immediately. Inside was a bank card inlaid with flat diamonds. He estimated that the value of the diamonds alone was more than $10,000. Randall suddenly became excited. He hurriedly put on his clothes and planned to go out and spend some money. Just after he walked out of the dormitory building, he saw a club not far away holding an event to raise funds for young patients with heart disease. It occurred to Randall that his class would also host a fundraiser. Such activities are mandatory for everyone. In the past, Randall had been short of money because his parents suddenly disappeared and he had to make a living on his own. His annual tuition was funded by student loans. Therefore, the maximum amount he donated in a fundraiser was $100. But that's about to change. He's wealthy now, so he can give more. Randall hurried to the bank to withdraw money. As soon as he arrived, he joined the queue to withdraw money. The line was long, and everyone was impatient. "All of you step back. I'm a gold VIP, so I don't have to queue." A familiar voice suddenly sounded. The next second, a tall man jumped to the front of the team. Immediately, there were angry complaints from the aggrieved people in the queue. "Who does he think he is? He has no right to cut in line. Forget it, man. He's a golden VIP customer of this bank. If we complain again, he'll crush us like ants." No one dared to express dissatisfaction. When Randall's eyes caught the troublemaker's face, he could not help shouting angrily, "Who are you to cut in line, Shaywins? Gold VIPs do not have this right. Such privileges are reserved only for supreme VIPs." Shaywins was startled that someone dared to challenge him. He turned around quickly. When he found it was Randall, his blood boiled. He has not forgotten the fact that Randall defeated him and his team before. He decided to take revenge on him now. Although he is far inferior to Randall in medical skills, he thinks he can trample on him in terms of wealth. "You dare to complain? You're just a poor guy. What's the harm in getting your money a little late? After all, you want to withdraw a few $100s, right? How about it? I can give you $100. All you have to do is kneel down and bark like a dog. That way, you don't have to wait in line. What do you say?" The commotion here immediately attracted the attention of the bank's deputy manager, who was checking the hall. As soon as he arrived at the scene, he understood what happened. A gold VIP had no right to cut in line, but he couldn't offend Sean's, but the poor man who quarreled with him could. The deputy manager put his hands on his hips and asked, "What's going on here? Is there something wrong with the gold VIP cutting in line?" He turned to Sean's, bowed slightly, and said with a flattering smile, "Please accept my apology for this unnecessary trouble, sir. You can follow me to the VIP reception room. There, you will receive one-on-one service." "That sounds great. Take me there." Shaywins nodded proudly. Then he shook hands with Tanya and followed the assistant manager. The existence of a VIP reception room was new to Randall. He wanted to see what it looked like. Although he didn't know what his credit card membership level was, he believed it was higher than Shaywin's. Randall followed the three men confidently. When he reached the door, the assistant manager stopped him. He cursed, "Get out of here. Don't you know where this is? You don't deserve to come in." He pushed Randall away and slammed the door shut. Randall was angry and patted his chest to stay calm. He got back in line. 10 minutes later, it was finally his turn. Standing in front of the counter, he handed over his bank card and said, "I want to withdraw $50,000. The female banker who had been frowning at him was shocked when she saw his bank card. She quickly picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Sir, there is a Supreme VIP customer here." Chapter 26 Bank General Manager. The general manager was leisurely sipping coffee in his office, and when he heard the shocking news, he jumped out of his chair. "Okay, please stop him politely. I'll be there soon." A few seconds later, Randall saw a middle-aged man in a suit hurried down the stairs. The man scanned the bank hall like a hawk. His eyes quickly caught sight of the diamond on the black card in Randall's hand. Only the most VIP customers have bank cards inlaid with diamonds. The general manager walked up to Randall with a flattering smile and held out his hand. "Hello, sir. My name is Bar Swain, and I'm the general manager of the bank. Is there anything I can help you with?" "Oh, I see. Since you're the general manager, can you let me into the VIP reception room?" Randall asked, pointing to the VIP reception room that he had just been denied entry to. Bar immediately responded, "Of course. You may come in. In fact, there is a better VIP room suitable for a distinguished guest like you. Please come this way." He was about to take Randall to another room. Randall shook his head and insisted, "No, I just want to go into that room. The assistant manager just said I don't deserve to go in. I want to prove him wrong." When Ball heard this, he was filled with anger. He cursed the deputy manager in his heart. He hurriedly took Randall into the VIP reception room. Inside, Shaywins was flirting with the female employee serving him while touching Tanya's arm. The deputy manager's eyes flashed with desire. He licked his lips, trying to hide his excitement and jealousy. Just then, the door opened. Everyone turned around and saw Randall standing at the door. The deputy manager's face immediately turned gloomy. He stood up and shouted, "Are you crazy? I told you that you don't deserve to be here. Didn't you hear me? How dare you barge in like this? Security, kick him out." The assistant manager angrily walked toward Randall, intending to make a good impression on Shaywins. But before he could get to Randall, Bar walked into the room. Ball's face was as dark as coal, and his lips were trembling. The bank has many branches around the world, and about 1,000 general managers like Bar. Only a few dozen people hold supreme cards, which give them so much power that a general manager can be fired if they make a simple complaint. Bar didn't want to lose his job. He was shocked and annoyed by what the assistant manager had just said to Randall. Bar strode toward the assistant manager and slapped him hard in the face. "Are you crazy? How dare you treat a distinguished guest so disrespectfully?" The deputy manager covered his face, which had been hit, and trembled. He raised his head and looked at Ball's gloomy face. "Please let me explain, sir," he said anxiously. "Save me your boring explanation. I don't want to hear it." "You are fired," Bar announced. The deputy manager was shocked by his announcement. He fell to his knees and tried to beg for mercy. But the security guards didn't give him a chance. They grabbed his shoulders and dragged him out roughly. Seeing this scene, Shaywinsi and Tanya could no longer sit still. "Who are you? Why don't you just fire this disgusting poor guy instead of kicking him out? Are you crazy?" Shaywins yelled. Bar walked towards the couple, staring at Shaywins. "Young man, watch your words. I will just watch you quietly. If you have the guts, try to drive this distinguished guest away." Chapter 27, $500,000. A distinguished guest. Shaywin said incredulously, pointing at Randall. "Are you referring to him? I'm afraid his net worth is less than $1,000. Why did you mark him as a distinguished guest?" When Ball heard this, he was already laughing at this fool. He snapped his fingers and ordered, "Security, get them out." 3 other sturdy security guards walked up to Shaywins and Tanya and dragged them out. Bar walked back to Randall and said with a flattering smile, "Please take a seat. What can I do for you?" "Well, my school is having a fundraiser. I want to donate, so I need to withdraw $50,000, Randall replied after he sat down comfortably. "Okay, I'll do it right away." Ball immediately called someone. In less than a minute, a bank clerk came over with a suitcase. She bowed to Randall and opened the suitcase. The next second, bundles of dollar bills came into view. Deep wrinkles appeared on Randall's forehead. He wasn't one to draw too much attention. Carrying a suitcase to a fundraiser would have drawn unwanted attention. And if he walked down the street carrying a suitcase with $50,000 in it, he could become a target for armed robbers and hooligans. Bar was a wise man. He saw Randall's frown and quickly understood his idea. "Sir, I have an idea that you might like. The bank can transfer the money to the recipient's account. In this way, you don't have to carry so much cash. What do you think?" Bar used his connections to learn about the primary beneficiaries of today's fundraiser. This person's name is Kira Seymour. She had a serious heart condition and needed a life-saving surgery that would cost $200,000. Other post-operative expenses were approximately $300,000. Randall couldn't help but think of the hotel that Stewart gave him. The hotel's market value is estimated at $500 million. To Stewart, $300,000 was nothing. Randall decided to donate $500,000. He was sure Stewart wouldn't mind. He waved his hand and said to Bar, "You know what? I don't want to donate another $50,000. Just transfer $500,000 to that account. Huh? $500,000? Ball couldn't believe his ears. He stared at Randall with wide eyes, wondering how rich this young man was. Barr wished he could be that rich. After the transfer was completed, Barr walked Randall out of the bank. He even offered to give him a ride. But Randall declined, opting to take a taxi. A teenage girl lies in bed in a ward at Hodder Royal Hospital. Her face was pale, her lips were cracked, and her weak eyes stared out the window, watching the birds. Those birds have a great life. When will I get to live my own life? The sick girl is called Kira. Doctors say that if she doesn't have surgery soon, she will be bedridden for life. Kira's parents are poor and cannot afford the $500,000 they would need to pay for her medical expenses. She has been in this ward for a long time. When Kira's right, I was about to shed a tear. The door suddenly opened, and her mother walked in excitedly, holding her mobile phone tightly. Honey, I have good news. Luck is finally on your side. A rich man just donated $500,000 to you. You can have the surgery now. What? When she heard the news, Kira's previously dim eyes suddenly lit up. Her mother rushed over to hug her, and they hugged each other tightly, shedding tears of joy. Kira wiped away her tears with the back of her hand and said, Mom, this means that I will be able to live a normal life soon. Who is this kind man? I want to write a letter to thank him. For him, $500,000 may be just a small amount of money, but to me, it means everything. Inside the bank, Barr was busy going over some documents in his office. Suddenly a phone call comes in. Kira introduces herself and says she has a letter for Randall. Barr was delighted to hear the news, as he had been troubled by the fact that Randall had left before he had a chance to please him. That's a great idea. I'm on my way to the hospital now, and I can deliver your letter to him in person. At Hedell Medical College, Randall took a taxi to the campus. He passed the fundraising hall and checked the projector. It listed about 30 people who had received donations today, including Kira. It said she had received a donation of $530,000. Randall smiled and prepared to leave, but a harsh voice made him stop. That's Tanya. Stop, Randall. Everyone has donated. What about you? Are you not going to donate? Or do you want to embarrass our class? Randall turned around and found that the donation areas were divided according to different classes. The class with the largest donation will be awarded the title of Angel of Love. Although Shaywins didn't know why Barr kicked him out for Randall, he still felt that Randall was just a poor man. He knew that Randall had been living hand to mouth in the 3 years since they had been classmates. He put one arm around Tanya's slender waist, and with the other hand, he took out his wallet and handed it to her. He kissed her cheek and said, Ignore him. Poor people like Randall need donations. I was only going to donate $500. How about that? Take out $1,000 from my wallet and put it in the donation box. The extra $500 will be given to this poor guy. Everyone nearby burst into laughter when they heard what Shaywin said. Even students from other classes couldn't help laughing. Hey, Randall, I thought you won a lot of scholarships. Why are you poor now? Yeah, that's right. You should at least donate $10. Everyone has to donate. If you don't, our class ranking will drop. Donate now, man. Seeing this, Dorsey walked over and said, Quiet, everybody. I'm going to donate $200 to Randall. Shaywins disagreed. No, I can't let you do that, Miss Riley. Randall is my classmate. I should donate on his behalf. You know what? I'm going to donate $1,500. $1,000 is for the patient, and $500 is for Randall. The hall erupted in laughter again. I've already donated money, Randall said coldly. That's a big lie. I was the first one to arrive. Why didn't I see your donation? A girl shouted. Randall said calmly, Donations can be made in different ways. I didn't put my donations in a box. I donated them in a bank. This statement made Shaywin's heart skip a beat. He saw Randall at the bank this morning. Did he go there to donate? Shaywin's had a strange feeling. However, he still said stubbornly, If you really donated, tell us how much you donated. Randall glanced at him and slowly replied, $500,000. As soon as his answer came out, the whole hall immediately became as silent as a tomb. Chapter 28, An Unexpected Witness. Tanya laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. She held her stomach and said, Randall, is it still daytime? Why are you exaggerating? Do you think we are fools? You should have said a more credible amount, like $50 or so. Sean's pointed at Randall and commented, You poor bastard. You think we will believe such a lie? It's really an insult to us. Have you ever seen $500,000 in cash? How could you donate so much money? You have never seen it before? This is definitely the funniest joke of the century. Dorsey couldn't defend Randall, and she also felt he was lying. As his teacher, she understood his poor family background. To prevent Randall from further ridicule, she interjected, "Okay, class. It doesn't matter how much money Randall donated. What matters is his kindness. He's as kind as anyone else." "Bah, that's not true. Maybe Randall didn't donate any money at all. He's lying to us," a student shouted. None of them wanted to believe Randall. Dorsey knew the students would not give up, so she took out $300 from her pocket and put it into Randall's hand. She whispered, "You can donate this money." Randall shook his head and returned the money. "I've already donated $500,000. "Randall, you are such an arrogant guy. If you donate $500,000, I will donate $5 million. Sean's laughed. Everyone burst into laughter again. A shrill male voice suddenly interrupted the laughter. "Who the hell said Mr. Carter didn't donate money? I'm the general manager of the bank he uses. I can prove that he donated $500,000 this morning." "Impossible." Shaywins had a bad feeling when he saw Barr. He knew he was about to be humiliated, but he refused to back down now. "How can we be sure that Randall didn't collude with you to give false testimony? You could be his relative." "This is bullshit. Do I look like Mr. Carter? I'm not even worthy of being his relative." Barr yelled at Chauvins, then pulled a white envelope from his jacket pocket. He handed the envelope to Randall. "Mr. Carter, this is a letter from Kira Seymour. She wrote this letter to express her gratitude for your donation of such a huge sum of money." Randall took the envelope in surprise. This was the first time he had ever received a thank you letter. It felt good. Ball, who was standing aside, couldn't stop smiling. He did something to make Randall happy. His heart finally settled down. Ball turned to face the students and said, "My name is Ball Swain, and I am the general manager of Heron Bank. If you still don't believe me, you can go to the bank to verify it." There was a whisper in the hall. Randall looked at the shocked expressions of the students and asked slowly, "Do you believe now that I donated $500,000? As soon as he finished speaking, there was an uproar in the hall. Shaywins, Tanya, and Brady wanted to continue to laugh at Randall, but now that the truth is out, they look like fools. Chauvins was the most embarrassed. After all, he said he would give $5 million if Randall gave $500,000. Tanya was as embarrassed as her boyfriend. She looked at her ex with a complicated expression. Where did Randall get such a large sum of money? Randall, the boy she knew and dated, was a poor boy. He was so poor that he didn't even order meat in the cafeteria. Only a very wealthy person could give away $500,000. When did Randall become so wealthy? The thought of this made Tanya fidget. She worries that her current boyfriend, Sean, isn't as wealthy as her ex, Randall. She had to find out how Randall got the money. Otherwise, she couldn't sleep or eat. "Randall, how is this possible? How did you get this money?" she suddenly asked. "What's that to you, Tanya?" Randall replied in a casual tone. "Randall," Tanya wanted to retort, but she rationally thought it was unwise to do so. She immediately changed her attitude. With a coquettish smile, she threw herself into Randall's arms and rubbed her soft breasts against his solid chest. "If you don't tell me, I will stick to you like glue. Are you a rich second generation?" Tanya's behavior made Randall feel sick. He almost vomited. He knew she was always attracted to wealth. Judging by her past behavior, he knew she would not let him go unless he revealed the source of his wealth. After thinking for a moment, Randall said, "Well, the fact is that I won the lottery. Mr. Swain knows me because I went to his bank today to cash a check." "Wow!" Tanya's eyes lit up. "How much did you win?" At this moment, her heart was racing like a runaway train. She was worried that Randall had won millions of dollars. Just a few weeks ago, he was the loser she dumped. She didn't want him to be so lucky. "Not much," Randall replied, smiling. "How much?" Tanya demanded. $600,000, Randall said. Hearing this news, Tanya's tension was immediately relieved. Hundreds of thousands of dollars was just a windfall. She inferred that Randall was still far behind Sean's in wealth. Almost instantly, she was filled with regret. She realizes that she could have enjoyed Randall's lottery money if she hadn't broken up with him. She gritted her teeth, wishing she could wait a little longer. Suddenly, one of Randall's classmates shouted, "Tomorrow is Miss Riley's birthday. Since you won the lottery, how about treating her to a meal?" Chapter 29, Sean's Plan. Dorsey immediately waved his hand and said, "No, thank you. It's just my birthday. I'll spend a day like any other." She hopes Randall will use his lottery winnings on things that will improve his life in the long run, rather than on her birthday. However, Brady and other students did not give up easily. They bullied and trampled on Randall because he was poor. Now that he's won the jackpot, they're not happy. They want to make sure his money is wasted quickly. The fire of jealousy burned in their hearts. Randall thought there was no harm in his classmates' advice. After all, he didn't have to pay his credit card bills. Dorsey had been very kind to him over the years, and he wanted to use this opportunity of her birthday to repay her for her usual care. Randall said, "Well, I'm going to throw Miss Riley a birthday party. You're all invited, and I'll pay for it." Wow, that's awesome. Almost all the students in the hall began cheering for Randall. Seeing this scene, Xiao Wen's became furious. He clenched his fists, thinking about how to deal with the humiliation he had suffered today. At this moment, a person came to his mind. That is his cousin Draper Morrison. Draper was very interested in Dorsey, and he wanted to pursue her very much. His family was wealthier than the Shawins, and their business was larger and more successful. He fits the role perfectly, Shaughnessy muttered, pulling out his phone and sending a message to Draper. As he expected, Draper responded immediately with a positive response. "I'll be there." When Shawin saw this reply, an evil smile appeared on his face. He asked Randall, "Where will the party be held? I hope you won't take us to KFC for burgers and fried chicken. Miss Riley deserves the best. We have to go to a fancy restaurant." When Doshi heard the news, his heart began to beat fast. The total number of students in the class was more than 30, and it would cost a lot of money to treat them to a meal in a high-end restaurant. To prevent that from happening, she waved her hand. "No, it's okay. I've been craving fried chicken. Who wants to come?" All the students booed and rolled their eyes. Tanya disagreed. "No, I don't want to go. I don't like fried chicken. You didn't pay the bill, Miss Riley. Why do you look scared?" Shawins cleared his throat and interjected, "I guess Miss Riley is thinking of Randall. You know what kind of man he is. He's very stingy. Even if he won the jackpot, he wouldn't be willing to treat us to a nice dinner. But I'm not going to eat at a cheap restaurant. How about this? My cousin Draper will pay half of the bill, and he'll choose a place for us to eat. Randall, since you just won the lottery, you should be able to pay the other half, right?" "Of course," Randall replied, touching the bank card in his pocket. Shawins's evil grin widened. His plan was working. "That's settled then. Meet me outside the Braden Hotel tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, guys." Many were shocked by his words. "Braden? Isn't it the nicest five-star hotel in town? Wow, the food in that hotel restaurant is so expensive. A set meal costs at least $5,000. The French food they sell is delicious. I can't wait to try it." Students immediately began talking about the Braden Hotel. Dorsey's face changed when she heard the arrangement. She roughly estimated that the dinner for more than 30 people would cost more than $100,000. Randall will have to spend all the money he won in the lottery. "Everyone be quiet. We can't go to the Braden Hotel. The food there is too expensive," Dorsey announced loudly. A cacophony of complaints broke out in the hall. Students stamped their feet and crossed their arms in protest. Who wouldn't want to dine in a five-star hotel? After all, they don't have to pay a penny. They all began to persuade Dorsey. "Ms. Riley, let's go there." "Forget it. Randall can't afford it." "You know what? Fried chicken and burgers are just as good. And cheaper," Dorsey insisted. Randall looked at Shawins. His suspicions were immediately confirmed. He was sure that Shawins had suggested going to such an expensive place just to target him. He decided to teach him a lesson tomorrow that he would never forget. "No problem. See you at the Braden Hotel tomorrow night." Chapter 30, Shopping. The next morning, Randall went to a shopping mall. Since it was Dorsey's birthday, how could he not prepare a gift? This shopping mall is very large. The first and second floors sell regular merchandise. The third floor is high-end clothing stores. The fourth floor is jewelry and gift shops. Randall pressed the elevator button and selected the fourth floor. When the elevator finally arrived and the doors opened, he saw someone he hadn't expected to see here. That's Louise. There was another girl with her. The girl is wearing a lace top and a short black skirt today, with part of her abdomen and waist exposed. Her abdominal muscles are truly breathtaking. She has obviously built them up through regular exercise. She also has a blue crystal on her belly button. Once someone sees it, they might want to touch it. Randall's eyes were drawn to her. When the girl noticed that Randall was attracted to her, she casually tossed her hair and pretended to be shy. Louise, on the other hand, reacted quite differently. A look of disgust appeared on her face. "Randall, are you okay? Why would a poor man like you go shopping on the fourth floor? The stores there only sell expensive luxury goods. Do you think you can afford it? Do you know this guy?" Louise's good friend Charlotte Aston asked her curiously. Louis answered without hesitation. "He is my classmate. He is just a poor guy who recently won the lottery. The prize was only a few $100,000, but he foolishly donated $500,000 to a patient he had never met. He is a fool. Louise wasn't done yet. She went on to tell Charla that Randall had broken an expensive medical device while touching it, leaving his right hand disabled. After hearing this, Shara immediately lost interest in Randall. Her false facade of shyness turned to hostility. She said rudely, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a pretty girl before? Stop staring at me with those lustful eyes. Otherwise, I'll dig your eyes out right now." These hostile words immediately woke Randall up from his fantasy. The only girl who didn't look down on him was Dorsey. The other girls always looked down on him once they knew he was poor. Their characters are always ugly, in stark contrast to their appearance. He was offended by what Louise and her friend said, even though he had expected it. He looked at Louise and sneered. "How I spend the money is none of your business. I donated $500,000 to someone in need. Maybe one day you will get seriously ill and need money for treatment. I hope people will donate money for you, but I won't be one of them." Randall walks into the elevator. Louise was stunned at first, unable to speak. As the elevator door was about to close, she raised her right fist and shouted, "You bastard! Did you just curse me? I won't get sick. I will live a long and fulfilling life. On the contrary, you and your entire family will get sick and die quickly." Louise was so angry that she continued to scold him even after the elevator doors closed. She only stopped cursing and left angrily when the elevator was rising. The first store Randall saw when he arrived on the 4th floor was Chanel. He knew that girls generally liked bags, so he decided to buy one. As he walked to the door, a shrill female voice reached his ears. "You bitch, you spilled coffee on my expensive bag. Can you afford to pay for it?" "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll clean it up for you right away." When Randall heard the second voice, trembling and familiar, his face changed immediately. He stammered, "Marion?" Chapter 31, Snob. The shrill female voice sounded again. "Do you know how much this bag is worth? You are not worthy of touching it. You scum." Randall rushed in immediately and saw a fat, middle-aged woman slapping a girl in the face. The latter staggered back and fell heavily to the ground. Marion Carter was Randall's neighbor in junior high school, and he even tutored her. They got along really well. Since they had the same last name, they were like brother and sister to each other. Later, Randall's parents disappeared. Marion and her parents moved to another place, and they lost contact. He didn't expect to meet her again in this way. Red fingerprints immediately appeared on Marianne's face. Blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. When Randall saw this scene, he felt a pain in his heart. "You dare to hit her?" At this moment, the fat woman noticed Randall's presence. She stared at him with contempt. "What are you going to do? She's just a bitch working in this store. Anyway, if you have a problem with this, you can call the police." At this time, the store manager Monica Davis ran over and yelled at Marion. "What on earth did you do? How can you be so incompetent? You can't even serve coffee properly. I hired you to work here, not for you to lie on the floor after annoying customers." Randall saw this and yelled at Monica. "What kind of manager are you? Your employee was beaten up by a customer. Shouldn't you protect her?" Monica sneered when she heard this. "Who are you to blame me here? Do you know how much Mrs. Medina spends in this store every year? Over $200,000. She is a VIP customer. If you want to be treated like her, you should spend the same amount. I might even allow you to hit me." "Oh, I see. Well, get ready to be beaten to death today." Randall sneered. Lucia Medina twisted her nose, pointed at Randall's clothes, and said, "Look at the rags he's wearing. Where did this poor bastard come from? This piece of trash must be thrown out. Otherwise, he will bring down the standard of this store." "Don't worry, Monica. I know the general manager. No matter what happens, I will take full responsibility." Turning to Randall, she said, "Why are you so arrogant to Monica? I beat her because she deserved to be punished. This bag is a limited edition just released this year. She spilled coffee on it. I didn't ask her for compensation, but punished her by beating her. You should be thankful that I left her some leeway." Randall looked at the bag in Lucia's hand. Since Marion had wiped it clean, there was no coffee stain on it. He sensed that she was just showing off her wealth and decided to teach her a lesson. "How much do you want?" Randall asked. This was not what Lucia expected him to say. However, she decided to blackmail him because he looked so foolish. $100,000, she answered seriously. Randall immediately took out his credit card and swiped $300,000 on the store's POS machine. "Now, it's my turn to slap you back," Randall said to the stunned Lucia. A heavy slap landed on her right cheek. Her plastic nose broke immediately and started bleeding. Randall didn't stop. He slapped her again, smearing her eyeliner. The third slap made her face red and swollen. The whole store then became as silent as a tomb. Everyone present was shocked to the core. Lucia's legs suddenly felt weak, and she fell to the ground, crying loudly. Randall turned sharply to Monica. Hey, can you repeat what you said before? Chapter 32, Buying a Bag. When Monica heard what Randall said, she trembled with fear. As she watched, Randall picked up a limited edition Chanel bag. The bag is decorated with lots of diamonds. You can tell at a glance that it's very expensive. How much is this bag? Randall turned to Monica and asked. Since he impulsively paid $300,000, Monica thought he was a wealthy man. The bag in Randall's hand is worth $420,000. If she can make this sale today, she will reach her sales target for the year. With remorse written all over her face, she knelt at Randall's feet and said politely, This bag is worth $420,000, sir. If you buy it, you will receive a Supreme VIP card. You will get a 10% discount on any item you purchase at any Chanel store. And that's not all. Anything you purchase can be delivered to your door. The tempting offers from Monica did not shake Randall's heart. You haven't done what I asked you to do. Repeat what you just said, Randall said to her mockingly. Monica only cared about the money. She swallowed her pride to make the sale. She slapped herself, not caring about the looks from her subordinates and customers. Was that a slap? I didn't hear any sound at all, Randall said, shaking his head. Monica rolled up her sleeves and began slapping her cheeks. Snap, snap. The slapping sound echoed throughout the store. The noise was so loud that it attracted the attention of some passersby, who peeked through the glass windows. Only when Randall saw Monica's swollen and red face with satisfaction did he turn to Marion and hand her the bag. I want to buy this bag. Monica, still on her knees, immediately became angry. She had humiliated herself in order to close the sale and collect the huge commission, which was about $20,000. Don't you dare make that sale. You'll be fired if you do. Monica barked at Marion. Randall was startled by her roar. He had just taught her a lesson. Monica had the nerve to threaten Marion in front of him? Meanwhile, a well-dressed woman in her 30s was running towards the Chanel store. She is Dottie Yates, the store's general manager. She had just been notified that someone had made a large payment in the store using a Supreme credit card. In order to see the man before he left, she rushed out of the office and rushed to the store. She sees Randall and Monica arguing. Dottie frowned and asked Monica, Where are the customers who paid with the Supreme credit card? I'm right here. Randall raised his hand and waved his credit card. Dottie's eyes lit up. She ran up to Randall and said, I'm glad you're here, sir. I'm the general manager of this store. What can I do for you today? I'm at your service. Just as Monica was about to speak, Dottie glared at her and said, You're fired. Take your stuff and get out. Why? What did I do to be fired? Monica yelled. Isn't it obvious? You had an argument with this young man. That's unacceptable. Security, get her out. Hearing Dottie's order, 2 security guards came over and kicked Monica out of the store. Monica was stunned. She was treated the same way she had just treated Marianne. Retribution came too quickly. Randall was pleased with this. He smiled at Dottie and showed her the bag he had picked out earlier. I want to buy this bag. Dottie's eyes lit up when she saw the bags he had selected. She was now quite sure that Randall was a very wealthy man because he had selected the most valuable and most expensive bags in the store. Marion grabbed Randall's arm, shock written all over her face. She was very happy to see Randall again after so many years. However, Randall is so wealthy that she feels a little nervous around him. Randall, have you made a fortune? She asked. Randall smiled and said, Yes, I did. Here's the thing, I performed surgery on a pair of conjoined twins a few days ago, and their parents are very rich. Today they gave me $1 million to thank me. Marion believed Randall, but she still tried to dissuade him. $1 million is a lot of money, but you need to spend it wisely. You're not married yet, right? Don't waste money here. You should save it for your future wife and children. Marion took the bag and tried to put it back on the shelf. Randall gave Dottie a quick wink, asking for her help. Dottie understood what he meant immediately. Although she didn't know the relationship between the two, some ideas came to her mind. She had met many rich second generations, and they always wanted to keep a low profile and find true love. She decides to help Randall. She smiled and said to Marianne, This bag is for you. If you don't want it after you use it, you can always return it. Even if the bag is damaged, we will accept it. There are no additional conditions. Really? Exclaimed Marianne. The offer was too good to be true. She had not wanted Randall to buy the bag because it was too expensive. But now the general manager decided to give it to her for free, and she happily agreed. The bag was packed and given to Marion. It was not until Randall was about to leave that he remembered that his purpose of coming here had not been completed. He came back and bought Dorsey a handbag that was almost as expensive as Marion's. Afterwards, he and Marianne exchanged phone numbers. They agreed to meet up sometime. Then he took the elevator down to the first floor. He walked out of the building, a shopping bag in his hand. At this time, Shara was drinking tea in the cafe on the first floor. She suddenly patted Louise, who was busy playing with her phone, pointed at Randall's back and asked, "Look at that guy. Isn't he your classmate who we ran into before?" Chapter 33, Draper's Lies. Louise looked at the man Shayla was pointing at with a little surprise. She narrowed her eyes and stared at his back intently. The man's back did look like Randall, but Louise shook her head and said, "That's definitely not Randall. Look, he's holding a Chanel shopping bag. How could a poor man like Randall afford the things there?" Louise was so sure of this that she stopped looking at him and continued scrolling through TikTok on her phone. Outside the mall, Randall takes a cab to the Brady Hotel for Dorsey's birthday party. To his surprise, he saw Dorsey and others standing at the entrance. It looked like they were waiting for him. Randall quickened his pace toward them. Upon arriving, he bowed to Dorsey and apologized, saying, "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, Miss Riley. I thought you would go in when you arrived. If I had known you were waiting outside, I would have come faster." Dorsey waved his hand and said, "Oh no, we're not waiting for you. In fact, a wealthy man is coming today. He's booked the entire hotel for his wedding, so we can't dine here right now. We have to wait until his wedding is over. That's why we're outside." Shaywin suddenly interrupted, "Don't worry, Miss Riley. We won't be waiting outside too long. My cousin has already talked to the hotel staff. In 30 minutes, there will be a gold box for us to use. Draper is very capable. Without him, we would have to wait a long time to get in." A strange male voice suddenly sounded. "Well, it's no big deal. The manager of this hotel is my good friend, so he is willing to help me." Randall couldn't help but turn his head and look in the direction where the sound came from. He saw a strange man with a smug smile on his face. Shawns took the initiative to praise this man, which aroused Randall's curiosity. He wanted to know what they were doing. Draper Morrison was wearing an expensive, neatly pressed suit. On his wrist was a gold Rolex watch. He looked handsome and wealthy. As a result, most of the girls stared at him. Dorsey's best friend nudged her gently and asked, "Who is that handsome guy? Is he one of your students too?" Dorsey knew her friend Selena Brown had always fantasized about marrying a rich man. "He is the cousin of one of my students. That's all I know about him," she replied helplessly. "I see," Selena commented excitedly. She adjusted her clothes and posed seductively. "You don't mind if I go out with him, do you?" "Of course not," Dorsey shrugged. Just then, Shaywins walked up to Randall and scolded him. "You know today is a special day for Miss Riley, but you chose to be late. You are hopeless." Draper knew Dorsey was always friendly with Randall, so he took the opportunity to laugh at him. "Don't waste your energy on him, Shaywins. Thank God he had the courage to come. I thought he was standing us up because he had to pay half the bill." To please Draper, Selena chimed in, "You shouldn't be late, Randall. Dorsey always raves about you. It's obvious you don't value her at all." "That's enough, you guys," Dorsey suddenly warned. Facing their hostile words, Randall sneered inwardly. He knew that their words came from jealousy because they thought he was poor. He believed that if they knew that the hotel was theirs, they would be shocked. Randall pulled out his cell phone and sent Joshua a text message telling him that he was outside the hotel. It was past 8 in the evening, so Joshua had gone home. But as soon as he saw Randall's text message, he immediately called the lobby manager and asked him to prepare a diamond box for the person outside. The lobby manager immediately followed the instructions. Once the box was ready, he walked out of the hotel. Standing in front of the crowd, he asked, "Excuse me, is there anyone among you who is a friend of the general manager? He asked me to take you to the box." "He's right here." Draper is so awesome. Even the lobby manager came to pick him up in person. Before Randall spoke, Shawns began praising his cousin. Draper's eyes widened in surprise. He only knew the assistant lobby manager, not the lobby manager or the general manager himself. He wanted to protest, but when he saw the students looking at him with expectation and admiration, he decided to go with the flow. "Yes, I'm here." The lobby manager had no reason not to believe Draper's words. After all, he was well-dressed and had the temperament of a wealthy man. Randall was amused by Draper's ability to lie with a straight face and decided to play along, intending to quickly expose this shameless liar. Joshua texted to let him know he was on his way. Chapter 34 Malice. The lobby manager led them into the hotel and took them to the top floor. The interior decoration of the fifth floor is based on the 19th century French-style theme. Everything here seems to bring visitors back to the glorious old days. Everything is French, including the bookshelves, paintings, and antiques. The lobby manager pointed out that these paintings and antiques are all originals, and the cheapest one is worth about $500,000. Randall was amazed by this place. As he listened to the lobby manager's introduction, his surprise doubled. He was very happy that he owned the hotel. Not wanting to enjoy the experience alone, he decided to bring some friends to dine here one day. Selena was as amazed as everyone else. Her heart was filled with excitement. She held her chest with both hands and murmured to herself, "This is the fifth floor of the Brady Hotel. I'm finally here. Wow, it's more luxurious than I imagined," Dorsey muttered, watching with satisfaction. "No wonder it's a five-star hotel," Randall commented. As always, Shaywins took the opportunity to laugh at him. "You're so funny, Randall. Have you ever been to any other five-star hotels?" He patted his cousin on the shoulder and added, "You better thank Draper. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have had this once-in-a-lifetime experience." Tanya, who had been silent until then, suddenly joined in the ridicule. "Randall, I hope you won't back out. Remember, you should split the bill with Draper." "Why should I thank him when I'm going to split the bill with him?" Randall countered calmly. "Huh, you still have the guts to talk. Don't worry, you'll burst into tears once you see the bill." Sean sneered. Serena sided with the bully. She had judged Randall based on his clothes, so she thought he was asking for trouble if he fought back now. She gave him a disdainful look. When they reached the door of the diamond box, Draper was stunned. He stared at the inscription on the door with wide eyes. Hadn't he just requested a gold box? Why were they directed to a diamond box? Draper is just a rich second generation who relies on his father's wealth. A simple meal kit only costs about $10,000. On the other hand, a diamond-encrusted dinner box would cost at least $1 million. Only a wealthy man like Draper's father could afford such a meal. At this moment, cold sweat broke out on Draper's forehead. He couldn't help but wonder if the general manager deliberately arranged for him to be slaughtered tonight. He wanted to say something to the lobby manager, but when he saw Dorsey and others waiting for him, he had no choice but to open the door and go in. As soon as they entered, everyone gasped. "Wow! Who would have thought we would be enjoying a feast in a diamond-encrusted dining box? My night was perfect. I will tell anyone who will listen that I dined here. This place is like heaven on earth. I wish I could live here." The students scrambled to find seats. Randall walked around the table, intending to sit next to the celebrants. Dorsey sensed this and pulled out a chair for him. But before Randall could get close to her, Selena sat on the chair and put her arm around Dorsey's shoulders. "I'm your best friend, so I should sit next to you." Dorsey couldn't blame Selena. She just smiled and motioned for Randall to sit on the other side of her. As she tried to pull out the chair for him, she noticed Draper was already sitting in it. He smiled at her and asked, "Half of the bill is mine. I have the right to sit anywhere, right?" Dorsey could only smile awkwardly. It would be rude of her to tell him no. After all, he had helped them find a room in this hotel and was offering to pay half the bill. At this point, most of the seats were already occupied. Randall scanned the crowd and saw that the only empty seat was next to Louise. "Please move that empty chair," Draper suddenly ordered, clapping at the nearest waiter. The waiter executed the order immediately. He couldn't afford to offend a distinguished guest like Draper. Seeing Randall being left behind, Louise covered her mouth and giggled. She was glad to see that he wasn't going to sit next to her now. Randall's eyes narrowed into slits. He asked Draper coldly, "Why did you order that chair to be taken away? I'm paying half the bill. Don't I have the right to enjoy the food at this table?" Draper shouted angrily. "Are you sure you can pay? You still have a chance to back out now. Don't cry when you see the bill. I won't go easy on you." Draper heard from Shovins that Randall had won $600,000 in the lottery. After donating $500,000, he might only have $100,000 left. Based on the wasteful nature of lottery winners, Draper believed that Randall had spent a lot of money. He estimated that Randall now had only $50,000 or $60,000 left. This amount is only enough to cover the booking fee for the box. Draper estimated he would pay for most of the bill, but he had no problem with it after an evil idea came into his mind. He thought he could take Dorsey away tonight after getting her drunk. He had been planning to get her for 2 months. In his mind, this was the perfect opportunity for him. Draper licked his lips at the thought of spending a night with a college professor for the first time. At this time, Randall's roommate pulled a stool over and placed it next to him, patted the stool gently, and said to Randall, "Sit here." After Randall sat down, his roommate whispered, "Forget it, man. Draper has the money and power. You have no chance against him." Randall nodded but said nothing. Shaywin suddenly tapped his champagne glass with his fork and stood up. "It's thanks to Draper that we can dine in such a fine hotel. Let's thank him by raising our glasses." Shaywins turned his head and looked at Randall and said, "Randall, you go first." Chapter 35, Shocking Order. Randall didn't move or say a word. He stared at Shaywins. His classmates were unhappy with his behavior. "It's just a toast, no big deal." "You're right. What's wrong with toasting Draper? After all, if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the fine dining in the Diamond Box. Some people are so ungrateful. Such an ungrateful person." Draper knew Randall wouldn't propose a toast for him. He shrugged and said, "Go easy on Randall, guys. He doesn't look like he likes being here. Maybe he's been to nicer places before than this Diamond Box. Anyway, he doesn't have to toast me. I don't mind. Not everyone is qualified to do that." Not only does Draper praise himself with these words, he also disparages Randall. The others toasted Draper, and then they began to order food. Pretending to show concern for the others, Draper handed the menu to Shaywins and said, "I've eaten here many times. This is your first time. Order what you like." After hearing this, Shaywins admired Draper even more. He thought Draper was amazing. After all, only the top people can dine in the Diamond Box multiple times. Shans looked at the menu and smiled from ear to ear. He suggested, "The minimum order here is $100,000. Let's have a good meal today. Waiter, 10 lobsters and 10 steaks." As they were ordering, Shaywin scoffed, "Just wait and see, Randall. You act like you're not interested in this place, but when you taste the food, you're going to be surprised." Randall sneered when he heard this. When the menu was passed to Randall, he noticed that the total price of the dishes ordered was close to $100,000. Sensing Randall's hesitation, Draper smirked and said, "Go ahead, Randall. Order whatever you want. It doesn't matter if the bill is over $100,000. It's my treat." Randall had originally just wanted to teach Draper a lesson. He didn't expect Draper to dare to provoke him like this. Randall isn't afraid to order food. First of all, the hotel is his. Moreover, he had a limit of $10 million on his credit card. He decided to teach Draper a lesson today. Randall frowned and threw the menu to the waiter, shouting, "You didn't order enough for everyone. French food portions are always so small. You know what? Give us all the specials." "What?" Shans couldn't believe his ears. "All the specials? The ingredients for the special dishes here are all shipped from France. The price of a special dish is between $7,000 and $8,000. Despite the outrageous order, Draper still had an elegant smile on his face. But his heart was filled with hatred for Randall, and his heart was beating faster. He will have to spend much more than he expected. Just when everyone thought the matter was over, Randall added, "I saw you just ordered a box of caviar. 10 people are not enough. Give everyone a box of caviar and a plate of foie gras." "Okay, sir." The waiter nodded and turned to leave. At this point, Draper's patience had reached its limit. He reached out to stop the waiter. Randall ordered a lot of food. The total bill would come to $200,000. Although Draper wanted to remain classy, he couldn't afford such a huge expense to treat strangers to a meal. "What's wrong, Draper? Do you think it's too expensive?" Randall asked, one eyebrow raised. Draper looked at Randall, only to find a smug smile on his face. This made him very angry. Draper decided not to raise the issue of the order. If Randall can't pay half of the bill, he plans to call the police. A few minutes later, the waiter returned with a receipt book and asked, "Excuse me, who reserved this room? You need to sign this book." Randall instinctively stood up and held out his hand. Joshua had booked the box for him, and he reasoned that once Joshua arrived and discovered that the person signing the book was not him, Draper's lie would be exposed. Not surprisingly, Shaywin stopped him. He slapped Randall's hand hard and asked angrily, "Are you crazy? Why do you think you are qualified to sign?" Louise sneered, "Know your position, Randall. You didn't sign this booklet." Draper used his connections to get the diamond box. Don't you think his friends would be angry to see someone else's signature? "Oh, I didn't think of that. You're right." Randall nodded in understanding and gave a knowing smile. Then he sat down. Draper smiled triumphantly, picked up the pen and the booklet, and signed his name without hesitation. Selena's eyes sparkled with admiration as she stared at him. Draper was the man of her dreams. he met all her requirements. When Draper noticed her affectionate gaze, he snuck a wink at her. He fantasized about playing a threesome game with Selena and Dorsey tonight. The waiter left after the booklet was signed. Meanwhile, Joshua was still on his way. He called the lobby manager. "Have you taken Mr. Carter and his guests to the box?" "Yes, sir. I took them to the diamond box. They have already ordered their food," the lobby manager replied hastily. "Okay, that's good." Joshua thought for a moment and ordered, "Take 2 bottles of La Romanicani from the special storage room in the basement and send them to Mr. Carter." "What? Are you serious? 2 bottles of that wine are worth $100,000, said the lobby manager excitedly. "So what? Just do what I say. Do you know who Mr. Carter is? He's our boss." Joshua hung up the phone the next second. When the lobby manager heard Joshua's words, his heartbeat quickened. He ran to the wine cellar, took 2 bottles of La Romanicani, and hurried upstairs, intending to deliver them personally. At this time, the banquet in the diamond box had already begun. Halfway through the meal, they began to give Dorothy the presents they had prepared for her. Most of them are valued at less than $300. When it was Draper's turn, he cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. He didn't put his present in a box like the others. He simply pulled out a small transparent box from his inner pocket, which contained a sapphire necklace. Almost everyone at the table was amazed by the sight. Shaywin said in a flattering tone, "Draper, this necklace is so beautiful. How much did you buy it for?" "Well, it didn't cost much. I paid $100,000 for it," Draper replied with a shrug. The necklace was not actually new. As a playboy, Draper used it to seduce women. Once he got tired of a woman, he would take the necklace back and dump her. If she refused to return the necklace, he threatened to sue her. He saved the receipt for the necklace and planned to use it as evidence of ownership in court. This trick works every time. What Draper didn't know was that Dorsey wasn't the type of woman to blindly fall into his trap. The beauty of the necklace caught her eye, but she quickly came to her senses. She shook her head and said, "No, I can't accept this necklace. It's too expensive." "Oh, please. It's not expensive at all. I bought it especially for you. Please take it." Draper tried to convince her. Dorsey, however, stood by her decision. The atmosphere in the diamond box became a little awkward. Randall suddenly interrupted and said, "I have a gift for you, Miss Riley." He pulled out the Chanel bag and handed it to her. Dorsey gladly accepted it. When she saw the price tag, she exclaimed, "This bag is worth $420,000. Everyone present was shocked by this, except Randall. A shocking silence filled the room. The people in the restaurant were so frightened that they were speechless. But their silence didn't last long. Sean suddenly said in a contemptuous tone, "Guys, let's be realistic. How could Randall's gift be so expensive? No way. Remember, Randall is so poor that he can't even afford to eat. This bag looks weird. I can tell it's fake at a glance. This fake is not worth more than $1,000. What Sean said sounded reasonable, and the other students nodded in agreement. "You have a point, Shaywins. My gut tells me this bag is fake. How could it not be? It's decorated with so many diamonds, and no sensible designer would use real diamonds on a bag. I shop at Chanel all the time. I've never seen this bag before, so I'm pretty sure it's fake." "Yeah, I agree with you. My sister once bought a real Chanel bag. The packaging of this bag is not like that. Randall bought Miss Riley a fake. It's so insulting." Students scoffed at the gift Randall bought for Dorsey. They were pretty sure it was a fake. At this moment, they looked at Randall with contempt. It was as if he had committed an unforgivable sin by buying Dorsey a fake bag. Randall's classmates were ashamed of him. To ease the awkwardness in the air, Dorsey patted the bag and said, "This bag is really beautiful. It must be real, but I think it may not be very expensive. The clerk may have put the wrong price tag. Thank you, Randall." She smiled at Randall and put her bag away as if nothing had happened. This scene allows her to escape Draper's pestering of her to accept the sapphire necklace. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and the lobby manager came in with 2 bottles of red wine in his hands. As a second-generation rich man, Draper immediately recognized that the 2 bottles of wine were La Romanicani. He quickly said, "We didn't order these." Draper knew that a bottle of this wine cost between $50,000 and $60,000, and he was panicking. If they drank this wine, he wouldn't be able to pay even half of the bill. "Sir, these 2 bottles of wine are gifts from our general manager. As per custom, we give such gifts to distinguished guests in the diamond box. Please enjoy." After placing the wine on the table, the lobby manager bowed to Draper and left the room. While everyone else was celebrating, Draper's heart was beating fast. Randall was as calm as ever. He knew Joshua had sent the wine just to please him. Something doesn't feel right. Just to be on the safe side, I suggest we return the wine. That way, we won't be forced to pay for it later, Randall said in a mock-concerned tone. Shut up. Do you think Draper is as poor as you? Even if the wine wasn't free, he could afford it. Shaywins retorted. When Draper heard this, his pulse raced like a runaway train. He hoped that Sean's would stop bragging. Such boasting would only cost him more money. Shaywins picked up a bottle of wine and handed it to Draper. Open the bottle and show this lowlife how we drink. Randall commented. Go ahead, gentlemen. Drink as much as you can. I hate to mention it, but I don't think you can afford it. When Draper heard this, a grenade of anger exploded inside him. He picked up the bottle opener and opened the bottle. The aroma of wine filled the air, spreading almost immediately. The lobby manager said that this bottle of wine was for the VIP guests in the diamond box. In Draper's opinion, he was the only VIP in the box. No one could compare to him. The bottle was passed around, and everyone poured their own drink. However, Randall didn't get to drink a single drop of wine. When the bottle was handed to him, it was empty. It was obvious that his classmates did this to curry favor with Draper. In their eyes, Randall was the lowest of the low at the table. They side with Draper because they can gain benefits from him. Just as they were beginning to enjoy their wine, Joshua finally arrived at the hotel. Chapter 37, Change of Mind. Instead of going upstairs to find Randall, Joshua went directly to the lobby manager's office. He wanted to check the meal details for the diamond box. He had promised Randall an excellent service tonight. He was relieved when he saw that Randall had ordered a lot of special dishes. It looked like Randall was having a great time here. Joshua was about to put the pamphlet down when his eyes caught the signature at the end. The signature was not from Randall, but from someone named Draper Morrison. Joshua felt a chill as sweat broke out on his forehead. Who is Draper Morrison? Oh my God! Could this person have stolen the diamond box reserved by Mr. Carter? Joshua thought hard. In a rage, he slapped the lobby manager in the face. What's going on? Didn't I tell you that the distinguished guest in the diamond box was Mr. Randall Carter? I said he was our boss. Why is there another person's name and signature on this receipt? The lobby manager knelt on the ground and picked up the receipt. When he saw what Joshua said, he trembled. Mr. Mason, this is a misunderstanding. I thought this man was Mr. Carter because he was dressed so respectably. Get lost. Joshua ran his fingers through his hair. Then he mustered up the courage to send Randall a text message to ask what was going on. It wasn't until he talked to Randall for a while that he finally calmed down. But he would not let it go. He ordered the lobby manager. Call 20 security guards immediately, and let's go to the diamond box together. Back in the diamond box, the banquet was over. Draper is now in high spirits. He hadn't expected to be so pampered tonight at the Brady Hotel. Not only did they allow him to dine in the diamond box, they also gave him 2 bottles of expensive wine for free. He speculated that his father might have been treated in the same way. Draper stood up and said to the others, I know we're all having a great time here. Now let's go. To end the night, I'm taking you all to the karaoke bar. Wow, that's awesome. They cheered and started to leave. Suddenly, the door of the room was kicked open with a bang. Joshua stormed in angrily, shouting, Who is Draper Morrison? Draper, unaware, smirked and replied, Well, that's me. Joshua walked up to him and slapped him hard. You bastard! What are you doing here? You don't deserve to eat here. Everyone in the room, except Randall, held their breath. Draper covered his swollen face and turned to the lobby manager for help. Hey, didn't you bring me here to eat? Help me. The lobby manager turned away silently. Draper turned to Joshua and explained, Listen, I booked the gold box and paid a deposit of $10,000. Shaywin stood up and asked, What's wrong with the staff here? Draper booked this box. How dare you hit him? Joshua kicked Draper in the stomach and dragged him to the door, pointing to the inscription on the door. You're not blind, are you? What does it say? This is a diamond box, not a gold box. You saved $10,000? That's not even enough to reserve a small table here. It didn't take a dim mind to see that Draper was pretending to be rich. He boasted that he knew the hotel manager, but it turned out to be a big lie. The students were in a panic at this moment. Selena felt sorry for Draper, who was beaten like a thief. She stood up and said, Okay, let him go. Well, we're dining in the wrong room, but we can pay. Students stood up and responded, Yes, Draper is rich. How much does he owe? You tell me. Sir, you have crossed the line. When we are done with this, We will go online and tell the world what happened tonight. I can't believe this is a five-star hotel. Your service is terrible. The students cast murderous eyes at Joshua. Okay, pay the bill. Joshua snorted, then clapped his hands. A waiter immediately brought the bill to the diners. What? They were all surprised when they saw the amount written on the bill. That's $360,000. Even though they weren't the ones paying the bill, their hearts were pounding. Draper was more flustered than the others. He is just a child who depends on his father's wealth. How can he spend so much money casually? Suddenly, Draper pointed at Randall and said, "This guy should pay half of the bill. So, you should get $180,000 from him." "No problem. I'll pay half the bill," Randall said with a shrug. Draper's jaw dropped when he heard this. The next second his heart was filled with regret. It made no difference to split the bill with Randall. He didn't have as much as $180,000 in his account. If his father found out he had spent so much money on a meal for a bunch of strangers, he would pay a heavy price. An idea suddenly popped into his mind. He thought it would be best if everyone shared the bill. That way he could afford it. You know what? This dinner is no longer my treat. Since we are eating together, we should split the bill equally, Draper said in a commanding tone. What? Do we all have to pay? But I have no money. How can I pay so much for a meal? I'm just an ordinary student. When the students heard Draper's suggestion, they panicked. Shaywin's was no exception. Draper, you said you and Randall would pay the bill. Why are you changing your mind now? Shut up. Do you think I'm a fool? I don't care whether you have money or not. Just pay it this way. Draper shouted coldly. How shameless. Sean's your friend is an evil liar. Oh my God. I've had enough of Draper. If I had known this was going to happen, I wouldn't have come here. Students who once supported Draper suddenly turned against him. Chapter 38, Paying the Bill. The students were at their wits' end. This puts Randall in a good mood. For him, this is a moment of revenge. Well, since we're splitting the bill, I'll pay for some of the guys. Randall picked out Dorsey and his roommate. Accompanied by them, he took out his personal bank card and walked towards the attendant holding the POS machine. He had $6,000 on his card, the balance of the original check for $100,000 he had received from Stewart. After he swiped the card on the POS machine, the balance on the card was cleared. Dorsey apologized. I'm sorry you spent all your money on us. It doesn't matter. After all, I got the money from the lottery. Let's go. Randall waved his hand and said. The five of them left together. The other students stayed in the diamond box with Draper. They looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Joshua ordered the security guards to guard the door. He glared at the debtors and shouted, "None of you can leave without paying. If you don't pay now, I will not only call the police, but also report this to your school. The school needs to know that its students don't pay for meals." The students burst into tears after hearing this. They turned to Shaywin's and Draper and began to hurl at them. Guys, figure out a solution. We have no money. Sean's, you assured us that the bill was paid by your cousin. Why are you asking us to pay now? You have no money, but you pretend to be rich. Shame on you. You two are scumbags. You dress nicely, but can't afford a meal. Draper and Shaywin's faces turned black after this verbal attack. Draper didn't care about them and was ready to leave, but Shaywin's couldn't do that. Because they're all his classmates, he can't escape. If he doesn't handle this well tonight, he will hear their flattery forever. He tried his best to prevent Draper from leaving. He pointed at Draper and threatened. Draper, don't leave us. If you do, I will tell your many girlfriends everything that happened tonight. I believe that once they find out that you are financially incapable, they will no longer have anything to do with you. The threat was fatal. Draper had no choice but to split the remaining bill with Chauvins. Draper pledged the necklace to pay for it. Shawency didn't have the necklace and didn't have enough money. He secretly opened the loan app on his phone and borrowed some money. After that, he paid for the meal. Once the payment was made, the other students became happy again and praised them again. The next morning, Randall saw a flood of messages in the group chat about what had happened at the hotel the night before. He was grinning from ear to ear. He was glad that Chauvins, Draper, and their supporters had a bad last night. Just as Randall was laughing, he received a call from Joshua, who reported to him everything that happened after he left the hotel. You mean the sapphire necklace is with you now? Randall asked in surprise. Yes, Draper mortgaged it because he had no money to pay for the meal, Joshua replied hastily. Randall recalled Dorsey's fascinated expression when she saw the necklace yesterday. He could feel that she liked it. He also knew that she refused because of her good upbringing. Bring that necklace here and modify it so she can't recognize it. Then send it to Dorsey, Randall ordered. Okay, I'll do it, sir, Joshua promised. After hanging up the phone, Randall got up, prepared to wash up, and then went to the library to study. But his cell phone suddenly rang. It was Wesson calling. Good morning, Mr. Carter. Are you free now? Wesson asked excitedly after Randall answered the phone. What's wrong? Randall asked curiously. Well, I have a special patient who needs treatment. Could you please come over and help? Wesson asked nervously, holding his breath, waiting for an answer. After learning that Randall was Stewart's student, Wesson respected him very much. He had witnessed him successfully perform an operation, so he believed that Randall was capable. Wesson now prioritizes him above all other medical students. Okay, I'll be right there, Randall responded, not wanting to disappoint him. Wesson pumped his fist in celebration. Thank you very much. I will order the doctors to pay attention to your work so they can learn something. Chapter 39, The Unreasonable Doctor. Time is of the essence. Randall hurriedly put on his clothes and rushed out of the dormitory building. He took a taxi to the hospital. Sitting in the taxi, he checked the time and realized that he had been waiting for the taxi on the roadside for more than 10 minutes. He couldn't help but start thinking about buying a car. Having his own car will save him the stress of taking public transportation. He can also take the girl for a ride. When Randall thought about buying a car, his mind went through all the places he could easily reach. As soon as the taxi arrived at the gates of Hedell General Hospital, Randall called Wesson. Wesson told him that he had gone to the airport to pick up a patient. He asked Randall to wait in the lobby on the first floor. The first floor of Hedell General Hospital is used by general patients. Most people are in the first phase of treatment. As soon as Randall walked into the hall, he heard a man groaning in pain. He turned his head in the direction of the groaning and saw a young man in a suit. A nurse was giving him an injection of antibiotics, and he was holding his painful right hand. Randall's brow furrowed as his eyes fell on the man's knuckles. The man's hands were already showing early signs of ulceration. It was clear that flesh-eating bacteria were slowly eating away at his fingers. Randall walked over to the nurse and said, "It's no use giving him regular antibiotics. From what I've seen, you haven't checked his fingers or nerves yet. You should do that so you know how badly the bacteria has eaten into his hands. After that, he'll have to get hyperbaric oxygen therapy." The nurse was stunned when she heard this. She frowned at Randall's tattered clothing and rolled her eyes. "Sir, if you are here to see a doctor, please take a seat and wait. Please do not interfere with my work. This patient has been examined by Dr. Meg Nath. He just has a minor bacterial infection, so a few doses of antibiotics will solve the problem." After the nurse finished speaking, she sent Randall away. At this time, footsteps were heard. A tall, sexy, beautiful woman in a doctor's uniform came over. Her long legs are very distinctive. She walked up to the nurse and asked, "What's wrong?" "Thank God you're here, Dr. Nutt. This young man." The nurse immediately told her what Randall had said. Meg Nath interrupted her before she could finish. "You mean a complete stranger criticized my treatment? That's bullshit." Randall sighed and joked. "Actually, I'm a student at Hedell Medical College. Meg scolded Randall before he could finish his sentence. "Shut up. Who cares that you're a medical student? You have no right to criticize my actions here. When I was saving people, you were probably still learning to count. Just because you're a medical student, you seem to think you're better than me, an experienced doctor? You really know nothing." Meg turned to the nurse and added, "Continue with my instructions. I'm going to the conference room for a meeting. If the patient requires emergency treatment, have the intern take care of it." Meg turned away, swaying at the waist. Randall followed her, but he had no intention of pestering her. He wasn't going to argue with her because she didn't take criticism. He decided to wait until he met Wesson and then tell him. Meg stopped in front of the elevator and turned around. With a look of disgust, she asked, "Hey, why are you following me?" "I'm not following you. Actually, I have something to do upstairs," Randall replied unhappily. Meg gave him a hostile look and reluctantly stepped into the elevator. As soon as they entered, they pressed the button for the third floor. Meg turned her face away, as if he were an ugly creature whom she did not wish to see. Randall responded in kind. After all, he didn't want to look at her either. He wondered why most beautiful women were so vain and arrogant. They never take advice from anyone. Randall was interrupted from his thoughts by the squeak of Meg's sneakers on the elevator floor. He turned around and saw her glaring at him, her eyes fierce. He flinched slightly. What happened to her? Why was she staring at him, as if he had done something wrong to her? Before Randall could figure out what was happening, Meg raised her hand and slapped him in the face. Randall reacted quickly. He dodged and held her hand tightly. "Are you sick? Why did you hit me? Do you think I won't fight back because you are a woman? Meg kicked him and cursed. You bastard. You know what you did? You stared at me through the mirror. Randall frowned and looked back in confusion. That's when he realized that the walls of the elevator were reflective. He kept staring blankly at the wall, so Meg thought he was spying on her. But that was far from the truth. Randall shouted at her. You're right. If you weren't staring at me, how would you know I was looking at you? The elevator door suddenly opened with a whoosh. Meg kicked Randall hard. She muttered to him, Pervert, you will regret it. I will report your behavior to the dean of your school. Then she stormed out of the elevator in anger. Randall was stunned by Meg's behavior. He walked out of the elevator in a daze and found the conference room that Wesson had described. Many doctors had arrived by this time. They all work in this hospital. They sat around a long table and chatted with each other. Chapter 40 Food Thieves. Randall didn't know any doctors, so he found a corner and sat down. An hour passed, and Wesson had not arrived. Randall had not had breakfast yet, so he felt tired and hungry. Just then, he noticed some fruits, snacks, and drinks on the table in the other corner of the room. He walked over and started to help himself. His clothes were completely different from the doctor's. Everyone noticed Randall's presence as he began piling snacks and fruit onto his plate. One of the doctors pointed at him and asked in confusion, Who is that man? Isn't this an internal medical meeting? He's not a doctor, is he? I've never seen him before. And he's not wearing the uniform of this hospital. Is he here to steal food? It would seem so. No medical professional would care about food before an important meeting. He even dressed like a beggar. The more they assessed Randall's attire and behavior, the more they felt he was out of place here. Dr. Turner's disciple is going to attend this meeting. If he sees a beggar in the meeting room, he will be very unhappy. Worse still, he will leave in anger. We have to get rid of that guy. First, let's ask him who he is. If he can't give us a reasonable answer, we'll have security kick him out. At this time, a male doctor wearing gold-rimmed glasses looked at the door and said, Look, Meg is here. Meg looked more radiant than ever. She now had light makeup on her face. Her previously curly blonde hair was now straightened and draped over her shoulders. On top of that, the doctor uniform she wore was shorter than before. It looked like she had it trimmed to show off her beautiful legs. Her calves were completely exposed, and her fair thighs were also slightly visible. When Meg walked into the meeting room, her beauty attracted the male doctors like magic. Many of them gathered around immediately. The doctor, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, asked with concern, Meg, why are you late? Meg rolled her eyes and clenched her teeth. You have no idea what I got into on the way. I would have been here a long time ago if a presumptuous medical student hadn't pissed me off. This idiot had the guts to criticize my treatment plan. To make matters worse, I caught him staring at me in the elevator mirror. Meg exaggerates what happened between her and Randall just to elicit sympathy. Sure enough, the male doctors took the bait. They clenched their fists and frowned. Damn, I'm sorry you had to go through this. How could this happen here? There are all kinds of birds in the forest. How dare a medical student question you? My God, he must be very arrogant. He needs to be punished for what he did. Don't worry, Meg. As soon as we're done here, we'll go to the security control room and get the elevator security footage. We'll track down this disrespectful medical student and make him kneel at your feet and apologize. At this time, the male doctors were furious. They pretended to be perfect gentlemen. However, they were only pretending to be angry because they both had feelings for Meg. These doctors always secretly look at her thighs. Now, a medical student had the opportunity to stare at Meg for a long time, which was a blow to them. They decided to teach him a lesson and vent their anger. Okay, let's not worry about the unruly medical student for now. We should deal with the guy who sneaked in and stole the food. The bespectacled doctor suddenly changed the subject. Yes, I almost forgot. Let's deal with him now. All the doctor's attention turned to Randall's back. Someone sneaked in to steal the food? Where is he? Meg was curious to know the stupid thief. She looked in the direction her colleagues were pointing and saw a man stuffing cake into his mouth. When her eyes fell on Randall's profile and clothes, she exclaimed, That's him. That's the guy. Who? Meg. Do you know him? Yes, he's the perverted medical student I just told you about. Meg replied in a shrill voice. Chapter 41 Beating. All the doctors were very surprised at what Meg had just said. Meg left the crowd and walked towards Randall. At this time, Randall was eating cherries. His eyes suddenly caught sight of some shadows on the wall. He turned and saw a group of doctors coming towards him like an army. He was even more shocked to see the rude female doctor who had once accused him of staring at her in the elevator. Randall narrowed his eyes and noticed that she looked even prettier than before. It's really you. My printed Randall angrily. You're more annoying than I thought. You actually sneaked into this place to eat and stared at me? That's it. You will leave this hospital lying down. Security, throw this garbage out. Other doctors took action on their own until security arrived. One of them slapped Randall and cursed. You bastard. You are looking for death. How dare you stare at the most beautiful doctor in this hospital? If you do that again, I'll dig your eyes out with my fingers. Randall was in a dilemma. He wasn't afraid of being kicked out. What bothered him were the violent insults and slaps he received from doctors. Even a saint would be outraged by their behavior. Although Randall tried to remain calm, he soon lost control. If you don't stop attacking me, I will fight back. I'm not here to steal food. I am invited. Randall roared like a wounded lion. You're invited? That's ridiculous. You're lying. No medical student would be invited to such an important meeting. That's right. Only doctors who have worked in the hospital for at least 3 years are worthy of being here. You're lying. Meg and the others scold him and proceed to beat and slap Randall. Stop. My name is Randall Carter, and I'm a disciple of Dr. Stuart Turner. Randall shouted, covering his face with his hands. The torture paused for a moment. The attackers stared in amazement. But a second later, Meg burst out laughing and said, Nonsense. How could a legend like Dr. Turner accept a scum like you as his disciple? Girls, beat him up. Meg and her colleagues were preparing to continue the beating. But when they heard footsteps outside, their hands stopped in midair. At this time, the security guards said in unison, Welcome, Mr. Wesson. Oh my God, Mr. Wesson is here. Meg and her colleagues immediately turned toward the entrance and straightened their uniforms. They knew that if Wesson saw them acting like thugs, he would be scolded. Meg glared at Randall with a burning look, as if telling him that she was not done yet. As soon as Wesson walked into the conference room, he was surrounded by doctors. His aura now was serious and majestic, completely different from how he was in front of Randall. When they saw his serious expression, no one dared to say a word. He scanned their faces and asked, What are you doing? I heard your angry voices from outside. Why can't you behave yourself today? Dr. Turner's disciples will arrive any moment. Don't you know this will leave a bad first impression on him? Meg and her colleagues hung their heads as they were scolded. When the scolding was over, Meg asked curiously, Sir, when will Dr. Turner's apprentice arrive? I don't know. The last time I spoke to him, he said he was on his way. I called him just now, but he didn't answer. There was a hint of confusion in Wesson's tone. The doctors' faces turned gloomy when they heard the news. They were worried that Stewart's disciples would stand them up. Wesson said confidently, I know Mr. Carter very well. He is a man of his word and will not let us down. Let's just wait for him. Taking advantage of the situation, the doctor in gold-rimmed glasses said, we caught a pervert before you arrived. He is also a liar and a thief. He claims to be a disciple of Dr. Turner. Should we send him to the police station? Wesson was shocked. What? Who dares to claim such an identity? Bring him to me. The doctors took Wesson to the corner where Randall was. The bespectacled doctor pointed at him and said, That's him, Mr. Wesson. He's the pervert, the liar, and the thief. When Wesson saw Randall, his eyes widened in shock. When Randall looked up, their eyes met. He waved wearily and said, Hello. Humph. Meg snorted and rolled her eyes. That idiot is still pretending. I'm sure Mr. Wesson won't go easy on him. The doctors around her nodded in agreement. Randall's current state surprised Wesson. I almost begged him to come here today. It was a rare opportunity for Randall to take time out of his busy schedule to come here. However, he was beaten up by the doctors. At this moment, Wesson felt a chill running down his spine. He feared that if Stewart learned what was going on here, he would lose his position. Wesson rushed to Randall, bowed to him, and said, Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry. For a moment, silence filled the room. Chapter 42, Patient. The doctors were stunned when they saw Wesson apologize to Randall. Meg and her companions were even more shocked. Some of them blinked and rubbed their eyes repeatedly to make sure it was not a dream. Seeing the expressions on the doctors' faces, Randall's eyes flashed with sarcasm. Do you still want to call the police? You hit me and caused pain all over my body. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me? Meg was now ashamed and angry. She twirled her fingers and replied, I don't know. She never thought that the disciple of Stewart they were waiting for would be the annoying medical student who annoyed her today. Damn it, my career is over, muttered Meg regretfully. The doctors here are the core that makes the hospital run smoothly. As the head of the hospital, Wesson knows how important they are, but he's more concerned with pleasing Randall than protecting his unruly staff. To solve the problem, Wesson pleaded with Randall. They have all made a big mistake. Please punish them, Mr. Carter. Give them any punishment you see fit. Meg and her colleagues bowed to Randall. Please punish us. We are willing to accept any punishment. But please don't fire us. Randall laughs at them. His blood boiled as he remembered how they had abused him and beaten him. To vent his anger, Randall decided to teach them an unforgettable lesson. He decided today to show them what a real pervert looked like. With a serious look on his face, he singled out Meg and her 3 beautiful colleagues. You, and you. Now follow me to the elevator. You will stand in front of a mirror. I want you to see yourselves while you are punished. When the male doctors heard what Randall said, they showed excitement on their faces. Damn, is he going to have something happen with them in the elevator? Too exciting. Oh my God, this guy is sick. There are mirrors on the elevator walls. These girls will be able to see what they look like when they clap for love. I'm going to have a nosebleed. Meg and her companions flushed with shame. Meg was not only pretty, but also clever. She had never been so humiliated in her life. The thought of being punished by a young man made her sick. She decided to stand up for herself. She took a step forward and shouted, I will not follow you. Dr. Turner is a legend, and you are just a medical student. I will not follow your orders. Everyone here has more experience than you. Your education and special instructions mean nothing. Most of her colleagues support her. Previously, they believed that Stewart's disciple was an experienced doctor. It never occurred to them that he hadn't graduated from medical school yet. They all had years of professional experience, so they didn't feel the need to give him some respect. What's wrong with you? I can't even compare with Mr. Carter in medical skills. What makes you think you are better than him? If he was not outstanding, would Dr. Turner choose him as his disciple? Apologize to him now. Wesson roared fiercely. No, I won't. He has to prove he's better than me first. Meg insisted. Okay, let's make a bet. This will make it more fun. Randall looked at Meg with a grin. He was like a predator trying to lure a rabbit into a trap. The look on his face made Meg's scalp tingle. She had a bad feeling, but she quickly put it aside and looked at him defiantly. Okay, if I lose, I will resign without hesitation. But if I win, you must grovel at my feet and apologize. No, I don't need you to resign. If you lose, you must obey my orders once a week without hesitation. Do you dare? Randall said, shaking his index finger. Hey, Meg bit her lower lip and blushed. Okay, I dare you. Suddenly, hurried footsteps were heard outside. Wesson's assistant, Lowell, walked into the hall and breathlessly said, Mr. Medina, the VIP patient has arrived. Wesson's eyes lit up immediately. This is a great opportunity for Randall to show off his medical skills. Wesson rubbed his palms and said, Since you are all so eager to see Mr. Carter's medical skills, let's see who can cure this VIP patient. Wesson led them into a VIP ward. Randall originally thought that the VIP patient was a wealthy old man. But when he entered the ward, his eyes fell on a thin woman lying on the bed. Her chest was flat, and the outline of her ribs was visible through her blue hospital gown. It was as if there was only a layer of flesh covering her bones. She looked like someone who hadn't eaten in weeks. All the doctors frowned, and they looked at the patient in confusion. They had never seen a patient like this before. After studying the patient's body, Meg said with certainty, She has anorexia? Yes, it looks like that. Only someone with anorexia would be that thin. The doctors around nodded in agreement. Wesson shook his head and said, That's about it, guys. But she has a heart defect, not just anorexia. The valves in her heart don't function properly. Only surgery can fix that. Meg said worriedly, But she's too weak for surgery. She'd die on the table if we tried. Yes, that's right. The other doctors agreed with Meg again. They spent a few seconds mulling over how to treat the patient in other ways. But none came up with anything. Randall suddenly cleared his throat and said calmly, This problem is not as difficult as it seems. The surgery can be postponed for a while. She needs to eat so that she can gain some weight and energy. After that, the surgery can be performed. You obviously don't understand how serious her condition is. Her medical records show that she has suffered from anorexia for 3 years. It's impossible to cure her, Meg said contemptuously. Don't judge me by your abilities. You can't heal her, but I can. After all, I'm the disciple of a great legend. Randall crossed his arms proudly. He could treat the dying patient in a variety of ways. Chapter 43, Punishment. Meg and the other doctors still refuse to believe Randall. What can you do? Don't be so conceited. We have treated over 10,000 patients since we started our profession as doctors. We couldn't come up with a treatment. How could an inexperienced student like you know better than us? Randall said calmly, unmoved by their criticism. Well, perhaps you would be interested to know that there is a new medical technology that can stimulate the human brain using electrical currents and modify it according to the desired results. I plan to use it on this patient so that her brain will command her body to want food. This will solve the anorexia problem. After this, will heart surgery be difficult? I think not. Doctors immediately dismissed the idea. Your idea is unacceptable. It's too dangerous to stimulate a dying patient's brain with electrical current. You might make her condition worse. Worse still, she might die. As an experienced neurosurgeon, I have to say I have never used this approach. It's too risky. This method requires ample practice. Moreover, it should not be performed on a weak patient. Randall's idea sounded feasible, but none of them were willing to take the risk. This patient is an important person. If she died, they would face serious consequences. Randall looked at the group of doctors and asked, I will perform this surgery myself. Who is willing to help me? The doctors immediately backed off. They didn't want to be part of this dangerous plan. They began to talk to themselves. Is this guy crazy? Why should we, experienced doctors, help a medical student like him? I don't understand. He's not even qualified yet, but he's so conceited. He's playing with fire. If things go bad, not even Dr. Turner can save him. Oh my God, this guy is going to ruin Dr. Turner's reputation. Wesson stepped forward and said, if anything negative happens, I will take full responsibility. I believe, Mr. Carter, the operation will be successful. Even though he spoke so confidently, he was still a little flustered. His palms were sweaty. He prayed for Randall's success. With Wesson's support, Randall boldly chose Meg and her 3 friends to assist him in the operation. Before they began to prepare, a male doctor came out. He raised his hand and said, my name is Bolton Curtis, and I'm the attending physician in the neurosurgery department. I want to participate in this operation. Randall smiled at him and agreed. The patient was wheeled into the operating room, and the operation began quickly. Dozens of doctors and nurses watched the operation on a large screen. Although this was Randall's first time performing neurosurgery, he was confident because he had watched a video of Stewart performing the procedure. He took note of important details and studied how the nerve needed to be stimulated. Since he had practiced dissection several times, he was not nervous at all. He did it very accurately. Other medical staff watched him on a large screen, shocked. A gray-haired doctor said in amazement, he is only in his 20s, but his skills with a scalpel are better than mine. It is a real pleasure to watch him perform surgery. He has never made a mistake. What a great doctor. Meg and the 4 other doctors assisting Randall were also shocked. Shame and regret began to spread in their hearts. A surgery that normally takes 3 hours was completed in 90 minutes. Randall took off his blood-stained gloves and walked out of the operating room. He was welcomed by applause. No one doubted him now. As the compliments poured in, the nurse Randall had met on the first floor ran over. Dr. Nutt, another checkup on that patient. It turns out there's flesh-eating bacteria eating his hands. Meg's face turned red with shame. She lowered her head and tried to run away. However, Randall shouted, where are you going? We made a bet. Don't you remember? Meg and the 3 female doctors blushed when they heard this. As the crowd watched, they followed Randall toward the elevator like helpless lambs. As soon as the elevator door closed, the atmosphere immediately became tense. Randall pointed to the handrails usually used by disabled patients and said, you guys are accusing me of being a pervert, aren't you? Well, I'll show you what perverts do. You all grab the handrails with both hands and lift your butt. Please don't do this. The female doctors begged for mercy. But Randall was as hard as iron. When they saw his ruthless expression, they had no choice but to follow his orders. They watched him standing behind them through the mirror. Bang! Randall spanked half of Meg's bottom hard. Oh, kryd Meg chörmingli. Then he spanked the other half of her bottom. He repeated the same thing to all the other female doctors. How dare you scold me and hit me? Now it's time for revenge. Now you know how it feels to be beaten. Randall spanked them mercilessly. Their cries sound so alluring. Other men might have sex with them here. But Randall is not that kind of person. In his opinion, beating them like this was the perfect way to teach them a lesson. The women cried loudly. 30 minutes later, they finally came out of the elevator. They all covered their buttocks and thighs. Wesson made sure no one entered the monitoring room. As a result, The male doctors had no idea what was going on inside. When they saw their colleagues limping out, holding their buttocks, they concluded that Randall had done something unspeakable with them in the elevator. Everyone was stunned. Some of the doctors gave him a thumbs up. In their minds, Randall not only has outstanding talents and abilities, but also has good physical fitness. Chapter 44: Annoying Flies. Now that Randall has taught Meg and her friends a lesson, the real meeting begins. He shared some of the knowledge he had learned from Stewart. The doctors were fascinated by his speech and applauded him wildly. When Randall came downstairs, many doctors gathered around him. They saw him take out his phone and open the Uber app as if he was going to call a car to go back. "Mr. Carter, don't you have a car?" "Well, that's all right. I have a car. Let me give you a ride, Mr. Carter. I recently bought a brand new Porsche. It's comfortable and fast. Let me drive you. I can take you anywhere you want to go." "Humph, your Porsche is nowhere near as good as my Ferrari." Meg squeezed through the crowd and whispered to Randall, "I have a Maserati. Please let me drive you to your destination." During the meeting, she saw the truth. Meg realized that Randall was much better than she was at medicine. He also had great connections. She realized it would be unwise to confront him, so she decided to make friends with him. Randall shrugged and nodded at her. "Okay, please drive me back to school." He doesn't care what car he takes, but he prefers beautiful female drivers to male drivers. Meg took him to her white Maserati. The other doctors looked on enviously as Randall got in the car and drove out of the hospital grounds. On the way, Meg and Randall got along as if they had never argued before. Meg was surprised to find that although Randall was a genius with a background, he was still down to earth. The Maserati was very comfortable. The thought of buying a car again troubled Randall. He didn't want to continue taking taxis or other people's cars all the time. When they arrived at the school, Meg walked him to the school gate. Randall decided to study in the library. Suddenly, a cold female voice came from behind. "Randall, stop." Randall turned around confused to see who was shouting at him in that way. It turned out to be Rosita. He wondered why she called him. After all, he had been staying away from her lately. Why was she staring at him with such a fierce expression? "What's wrong, Rosita?" Randall asked carefully. Rosita pointed in the direction of the school gate and asked, "Who is the woman who brought you here? Is she a doctor from Hedell General Hospital?" "Yes." Randall nodded. "Unbelievable. You are just a reckless person who doesn't care about the lives of patients." Rosita suddenly scolded him. "What are you talking about?" Randall frowned and stared at her. "Did you accept the internship you got after your last exam?" Rosita asked anxiously. She was eager to know if he would accept the internship he had been offered a few days earlier after treating conjoined twins. No matter what, she would not change her opinion of him. She thought he was unworthy of the position because he cheated. In her eyes, the internship position was hers. Rosita still hasn't gotten over Randall's disability. She felt that once the hospital management found out he was disabled, he would be kicked out. She expected him to turn down the internship offer. In this way, after Randall spoke well for her, the invitation would naturally come to her. To her greatest surprise, Randall was taken to school by a woman wearing the uniform of a doctor from Hedell General Hospital. It goes without saying that he has accepted the internship invitation. It was the only plausible reason she could think of. At this point, Rosita's anger was steaming. Randall's acceptance ruined her chances of getting an internship invitation. "What's wrong with you? Whether I accept the invitation or not has nothing to do with you. Mind your own business." Randall scolded her bluntly. If he wanted to go to Hedell General Hospital, he didn't need an invitation to practice. A word to Wesson would get him a job at the hospital. He had completely forgotten about receiving the job offer until now. Although this rude response aroused Rosita's anger, she suppressed her emotions and said calmly, "If you have already accepted the internship opportunity, it doesn't matter. You must give it to me. Go back and tell their director that you have changed your mind. By the way, recommend me." "Why would I do this?" Randall was irritated by Rosita's audacity. He turned around and planned to leave her. Rosita yelled at him, "Have you forgotten that you are a disabled person? You may be able to work in the hospital for a while, but once they find out that your right hand is incomplete, you will be kicked out. Since you have the opportunity to resign, why endure such humiliation? Besides, you are good for nothing. Do you want to kill patients because of your stubbornness? You don't deserve to be a doctor." Randall was shocked by her words. He retorted, "You idiot. Oh, are you qualified to be a doctor? Come on, Rosita. You almost killed the conjoined twins." Randall left her afterwards. Rosita stamped her feet on the ground angrily, staring at his back and shouting, "Don't say I didn't warn you." Once they find out you're disabled, you'll definitely be kicked out. You know what? I won't wait until then. I'll expose you now. Rosita angrily walked out of the school and headed towards the nearest bus stop. Suddenly, an Audi A6 stopped in front of her, honking its horn. The car window rolled down, and a young man who looked like a gangster stuck his head out. "Hey, Rosita, who made you mad?" the gangster said flirtatiously. Chapter 45, New Hospital. Rosita is not only the leader of her class study group, but also the president of the student union. Her beauty and position made her very popular in school. Many boys pursued her. The thug in the car is Sewell Finch, one of Rosita's many suitors. Sewell decided to start a conversation with her by asking her who annoyed her. He planned to take it further from there. Owning a car in college is a big deal, and people like this are said to come from wealthy families. Sewell seems to be wealthy as he owns an Audi A6. Rosita didn't treat Sewell like a poor boy. She retold what happened with a sad expression, painting Randall as the bad guy. She portrayed him as a cheater who beat her to the punch and got the internship that should have been hers. When Sewell heard this, he was very angry. He scolded Randall a few times. After that, he said, "Do you want to intern in the hospital?" "Don't worry, I will make it happen." "Really? What would you do?" Rosita asked excitedly, her eyes lighting up. Sue Wire smiled triumphantly and patted the passenger seat. Rosita winked at him, carefully lifted her skirt, and got into the car. Sue Wire stared at Rosita's thighs. "It will be easy for me to find you an internship position in a hospital. Perhaps you will be interested to know that the Brady family has just established a hospital. I was invited to attend the opening ceremony today. You could be my partner. I will introduce you to him. When I mention the internship, he will be willing to help. Trust me." Wow, the Brady family just built a hospital? Rosita couldn't believe her ears. Because of her position, she knew there were a lot of rich guys in the school. She knew the Bradys came from a wealthy family, but she didn't expect they had the financial resources to build a hospital. Thinking of changing her situation, Rosita urged Sewell to drive quickly to the opening ceremony. At school, Randall found a good seat in the library. As he was about to read quietly, his cell phone rang. When he checked the caller ID, he saw it was from his roommate, Judd Porter. "Hey, what's up?" Randall asked after picking up the phone. Judd's excited voice came over. "Guess what? You know Brady Truman, right? His family just built a hospital. Today is the grand opening. The rest of my roommates and I are on our way there. Come on over." "No, I give up." Randall refused the invitation. What is so special about Brady and his family's hospital? Even though this new hospital was large, it was not comparable to the Stewart Hospital. "What? You're giving up? Don't be silly, man. We don't like him either. The new hospital needs doctors. We want to go there and see, and if we get invited, we can get an internship after graduation. Remember, your right hand is injured, and it's not easy to get an internship. This is a great opportunity for you. Brady may be willing to help you find a position in his family's hospital. You must go." Judd tried to change Randall's mind. Randall knew Judd was thinking of him. "Don't worry about me, man. I can figure it out. Go ahead and try your luck. If you don't succeed, tell me. I can help." Randall was able to help Judd find an internship at Hedell General Hospital. But he didn't say it because he was worried that their friendship would change. And that was exactly what he didn't want to see. "Okay, but Louise specifically picked you and asked for you to be there. It looks like she wants to announce her engagement to Brady," Judd reminded him. Randall is confused to hear the news. Louise and Brady are getting engaged? But what does this have to do with him? After thinking for a while, Randall decided to go and see for himself. "Judd, please save a seat for me. I'll be joining you guys shortly," he said. Randall walks out of the library. On the way, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of hospital Brady's family had built. He calls Amari and asks her to look into it. A few minutes later, she sent him a series of messages. The Truman family has a bad record. Turns out, this new hospital isn't the Brady family's first. They used to have a hospital in Norbridge, but it was closed after a series of dangerous incidents. The crime they were accused of was so serious that Randall knew that if word got out, the new hospital would be doomed. No sick person will go there for treatment. But after careful consideration, Randall decided not to reveal this information. Brady isn't doing anything offensive right now. Also, it's possible that the Trumans might want to start over. Randall decided to give them a chance of doubt and see if they could make up for their mistakes. 30 minutes later, he arrived at the address sent in the class group chat. He looked around and found that the hospital was located on the edge of the city center. This location was neither good nor bad. This hospital is worse than Hedell General Hospital. Needless to say, it is nowhere near as good as the Hoda Royal Hospital. The next second, Randall rationally decided that the comparison was unfair. After all, Hoda belonged to Stewart, and the other was a hospital with a medical school. As Randall walked through the door, he saw Louise greeting guests at the entrance with a bright smile. She was wearing a red tight dress. It not only highlighted her graceful figure, but also showed off her slender legs. Louise watched people coming in and out with a big smile on her face. When she thought about marrying the head of this hospital in the near future, her joy was beyond words. At this moment, she remembered how Dorsey introduced Randall to her. Bah! Miss Riley has such bad taste. Why would she think a cripple is right for me? She muttered to herself. In her eyes, Randall is just a loser with no bright future, even though he recently won the lottery. Brady is a fine young man from a family of successful doctors, and he is the only one worthy of his place. In Louise's opinion, Randall's current net worth is insignificant. She believed the hospital's daily profits far exceeded Randall's net worth. That's why she sent a message to the group chat, asking Randall to come here. She wanted to show him and Dorsey what a man worthy of her looked like. At this moment, Louise caught a glimpse of Randall walking towards her. She frowned and opened her lips to say something. Chapter 46: Major Investors. People often see such ceremonies as a great opportunity to show off themselves. While the other male guests were dressed in suits and ties, Randall was in casual clothes. It was obvious that he had put no effort into grooming himself. This made Louise furious. She frowned and stared at Randall and asked, "You hate me, don't you?" Randall was stunned. He didn't expect to be warmly welcomed, but he didn't expect to be scolded either. No, Randall was confused. He didn't hate her. However, Louise didn't believe him. Then why aren't you wearing a suit? You're wearing casual clothes. You come here like a beggar because you don't take me seriously, right? Get out. You're not welcome here. When Randall heard this, his face immediately turned cold. In order to maintain his image, he turned around and prepared to leave. Suddenly, a man's voice came from behind Louise. "Honey, what's wrong? Who made you angry?" Brady walked over, looking very stylish in a white suit. He put his arm around Louise's shoulders and looked at her lovingly. Louise immediately told him what had happened. "You can't blame him. Have you forgotten that Randall is a poor man? For him, a suit is an unaffordable luxury. These clothes are probably the most expensive he owns." Louis was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "I guess so." As they walked away arm in arm, Randall felt sick. He regretted coming here today. Randall was about to leave when his roommates suddenly came out of the building. Judd ran up to him, grabbed his arm, and said, "Hey man, there you are. Let's go in together." He teases Randall while dragging him along. "Didn't you say you wouldn't come before? Why did you suddenly change your mind after hearing that Louise was getting engaged? You like her, right?" Louise, who had not yet entered the building, stopped when she heard this. She looked back at them with a disgusted expression. "What? Don't tell me you want to date me. Dream on, loser." Louis pouts into Brady's shoulder. "Don't worry, baby. I belong to you with all my heart. You are the one I love. I will never like Randall." Brady laughed and looked at her fondly. "If it were anyone else, I might be a little worried. But since you're talking about Randall, I'm not worried. I trust you." Seeing Louise's shameless behavior, Randall felt disgusted. He never thought that Louise would act like this for money and power. Afterwards, they all entered the building. There were already many guests in the hall. Most of them were students from the Hedell Medical College. A swarm of girls buzzed around Brady like bees. They kept complimenting him. "You're awesome, Brady. You're right. He already owns a hospital before he even graduates. That's so cool. Brady, we'd love to work for you. Can we intern at your hospital?" Brady smiled from ear to ear after they praised him. They satisfied his vanity very well. He proudly put his arm around Louise's waist and said, "No problem. Since you're Louise's friends, I'll give all of you jobs." "Wow, you are our angel, Louise. Because of you, our internship problem is solved. From now on, we can rely on them. Oh, you guys, come on." Louise covered her face, blushing uncontrollably. Although she pretended to be modest, she was happy that they were flattering her. This was exactly what she had always wanted. She thought that getting engaged to Brady was the right decision. As she soaked in the flattery, she glanced at Randall. She wanted to see how miserable he was. To her surprise, Randall didn't look miserable at all. His face was as calm as ever. It seemed as if her engagement meant nothing to him. "Huh, what a loser," Louise muttered. Just then, someone spoke up. "I heard that this hospital received a lot of funding from the Turner family." "The Turner family?" "Yes, didn't you know?" The Turner family was one of the first settlers of Sloss. Their heritage can be traced back hundreds of years. It is said that half of the city belongs to them, and the other half is indirectly controlled by them. Do you know the legendary Dr. Stuart Turner? Well, he's a Turner family. Wow. The crowd began to talk to themselves upon hearing the news. A material girl said, "Does Dr. Turner have a son? I want to marry into the Turner family." It's still daylight, girl. Dr. Turner has no wife, let alone a son. He only has an adopted daughter. Louise interrupted her and laughed. The girl's shoulders slumped immediately. Oh no, my ambitions are being crushed before they've even begun. That's too bad. Brady, who had been listening to them, interrupted and said, "Maybe not. You might be interested to know that the reason we were able to get so much money from Dr. Turner was thanks to his adopted daughter, Amari. My father told me that Dr. Turner has selected an heir named Carter. The Turner family has a series of business investments because of him. If you can find this heir, you still have a chance to realize your ambitions." Everyone's attention turned to the stranger named Carter. They wanted to know who he was. The girls hoped to win his heart. Carter? Louise muttered. It suddenly occurred to her that Randall's last name was also Carter. She turned her eyes toward him suspiciously. But when she saw the old t-shirt he was wearing, she scoffed again. In her opinion, such a beggar could not be the heir of Stuart. Randall was furious. Is this young woman mentally ill? Why is she like this? She glared at him for no apparent reason.